Chapter 301. After the Battle of Chongping, Ouyang Shuo was constantly at the forefront of the storm. As the news of Sun Wu establishing the Land Army Martial Lecture Hall in Shanghai City spread, there were already military disciples who came to Shanghai City through the Shanghai City offices in the various royal cities. The disciples who came were basically nameless figures. They formed the cornerstone of the military school and filled the ranks of the instructors of the Land Army Martial Lecture Hall. The other representatives of the military school had yet to appear. On the forum, there was a lord who claimed that Wei Liao, one of the representatives of the military school, had come to his territory before. Unfortunately, he did not make him stay, and it was unknown whether it was true or not. As the news spread, Dali and Xuanzhou, the two royal cities that had a close relationship with Shanghai City, especially Xuanzhou, once again experienced a small influx of talent. A large number of unsuccessful generals chose to leave the royal city and come to Shanghai City to seek a way out. Although this batch of generals were all junior generals, they were still trained in the military and had rich experience in the military. They were truly a rare treasure. They were the true cornerstone of the military. Bai Qi placed them in the three major divisions and the City Guard Division to further increase the military's combat strength. The sequelae caused by the expansion of the military had basically been eliminated. Shanghai City's military's foundation and the depth of its talent pool was unrivaled except for Red Blood County. Because of the reorganization of the Eastern and Western divisions, the City Guard Division was completed half a year in advance. Although the City Guard Legions were part of the City Defense Forces, they shouldered the task of surrounding and protecting the main camp. Therefore, in reality, they were executed according to the standards of a field army in all aspects of allocation and requirement. The only thing that Ouyang Shuo felt regretful about was that the City Guard Division lacked a division commander who could shoulder the burden. As a last resort, Ouyang Shuo could only let Bai Qi be the division commander of the City Guard Division. Zhao Sihu, whom Ouyang Shuo valued, was appointed as the deputy division commander and was responsible for the daily work of the City Guard Division. According to the latest plan of Shanghai City, the waterways in the city were intertwined. In addition to the normal deployment of the City Guard Division, an independent Navy battalion was also set up to patrol the waterways. As the pace of the Army reorganization quickened, the three-tier military system of the territory's Field Army, City Defense Force, and Reserve Force was basically completed. In the future, in addition to selecting from the captives, another important channel was to convert the city defense troops to the Field Army, and then from reserve troops to city defense troops, and so on and so forth. The construction of a perfect three-tier army system could effectively prevent the rapid decline of the army's combat power due to the influx of a large number of new soldiers after the expansion of the territory. As for the Navy, after occupying Mooner Island, Ouyang Shuo had instructed Pei Donglai to strengthen the recruitment of sailors and Navy reserves in preparation for the expansion of the Navy next year. This was especially true for sailors. The barracks did not have the option of changing professions for sailors, so they could only be nurtured step by step. With the assistance of North Sea City, the Moon Island Navy Base was also successfully constructed. Apart from the naval barracks stationed at the base, 5,000 commoners from North Sea City were also moved in. These commoners were basically the families of the Navy soldiers and were extremely reliable. The most important task of the Navy camp stationed on the Moon Child Island was to draw up a nautical chart of the surrounding seas. This was to prepare for the future Navy camp to advance into the deep sea. Apart from that, investigating the surrounding pirates was also one of the most important tasks of the Navy. The Black Shark pirates of Mooner Island were just child's play in the North Bay. The bigger pirate organizations had yet to appear. From the description of the North Bay treasure map seized from Mooner Island, it could be inferred that when the North Bay pirate organizations were at their peak, they numbered in the hundreds of thousands. They were not to be underestimated. To Bai Qi, the navy was an unfamiliar territory. For the time being, he could only rely on Pei Dong Lai. In short, the Shanghai City Army was growing at a speed visible to the naked eye. During the reorganization of the army, the territory's administrative system was not idle either. It was also fruitful. The sweeping operation on both the east and west sides had brought Shanghai City more than 30,000 people. However, compared to the huge population of Shanghai City, it was not even 1/10 of the city's population. With the appointment of the two prefects, Wei Ran and Chui Shaoxi, the structure of the two prefectures was basically completed and officially put into operation. This marked the arrival of the era of the Lianzhou County. The separation of the Lianzhou Marquis Mansion and the Shanghai Prefecture was also completed. Hundreds of low-level officials were transferred from the Lianzhou Marquis Mansion to the Shanghai Prefecture, enriching the structure of the Shanghai Prefecture. At the same time, the 200 or so graduates of the Southwest University China Hall were assigned to various prefectures and counties after passing the administrative office's assessment to accumulate government experience. Some of the more outstanding ones were selected by the departments of the Lianzhou Marquis Mansion and directly entered the central administration. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Secretary Lang Bai's Nanpu leaders' secretariat welcomed an expansion. In addition to assisting the Marquis, Ouyang Shuo, the clerk of the secretariat was also assigned a full-time clerk to each of the three directors. After half a year of rotational training, the territory's basic government personnel had basically received training at the Southwest University China Hall. The training period ranged from 1 to 3 months. Starting from next year, the Southwest University China Hall's enrollment target would be the outstanding students recommended by the prefectures, counties, private schools, or academies, as well as recruiting from the general public. Officials in the government system would no longer be included in the enrollment scope of the Southwest University China Hall. The academic system of the Southwest University China Hall would also be officially divided into 1 year and 6 months. The 1-year system was aimed at students recommended by private schools or academies, while the 6-month system was aimed at recruiting from the general public. Regardless of the academic system, only after completing their studies and passing the academy's strict assessment could they smoothly graduate from the Southwest University China Hall. At this point, the operation of the Southwest University China Hall was completely on the right track. Because the territory's structure was undergoing a major restructuring, the officials were frequently transferred. The annual government system assessment was handled coldly by the administrative office chief Fan Zhongyan. Apart from some officials with bad behavior who were dismissed, the rest were handed over to the various prefectural offices. Near the end of the month, the Sky Sea Road was completed ahead of schedule. The completion of the Sky Sea Road completely opened up the communication channel between Tianfeng City and Shanghai City, signifying that the western region was truly integrated into the Shanghai territory. Under the repeated encirclement and suppression of the western camp, the roving bandits in the west had basically been eliminated, providing a safe and reliable guarantee for the development of the region. Taking this opportunity, Ouyang Shuo officially launched the Western Development Strategy. The Lianzhou Marquis Mansion was responsible for the overall planning, while the Shanghai Prefecture and Tianfeng Prefecture were responsible for the specific implementation. The plan was to build hundreds of agricultural settlements along the Sky Sea Road. Most of the newly added refugees were settled in these settlements. The mission of the settlements was also very clear, which was to open up farmland and plant mulberry and flax. The vast land in the western region could not be abandoned. Apart from the hills, forests, and other special areas, the rest had to be opened up for cultivation. According to the conditions of the land, crops such as rice, potatoes, and corn could be planted, orchards, tea plantations, mulberry trees, and cotton could also be planted. In short, the goal was to vigorously develop agriculture. Since the establishment of the territory, Ouyang Shuo had always emphasized on stimulating the development of handicrafts and industry in order to stimulate the territory's economy. However, Ouyang Shuo was not impulsive. He had always been aware that in ancient society, agriculture was the foundation of a country and always ranked first in all industries. Lianzhou County's unique geographical location and natural environment determined that it was the perfect rear. According to Ouyang Shuo's plan, in the future, Lianzhou County would not only be the territory's headquarters, but also the territory's agricultural base. It would provide the territory with an endless supply of food and other agricultural products, support the territory's military expansion, and provide the most powerful logistical guarantee. With a wave of Ouyang Shuo's hand, the Finance Department, the Department of Agriculture, and the Department of Household Registration were all busy. Fortunately, with the assistance of the agricultural experts, everything was still busy but not chaotic. It would not be easy to implement the Great Western Development Strategy. The first requirement was a huge amount of financial allocation. Whether it was the purchase of farming tools, seeds, cattle, and other materials, or the construction of water conservancy facilities, each of them required a large investment. In addition to financial support, there was also the innovation of agricultural technology, including a series of measures such as plows, water wheels, seedlings, and so on, to ensure the increase of agricultural output. Of course, the most important thing was the agricultural planning. There was a need to pay attention to which areas were suitable for planting rice, which areas were suitable for planting cotton, and which areas were suitable for planting mulberry trees. The current affairs of the territory could no longer be handled by Ouyang Shuo alone. No matter how capable he was, he could not complete the above task. He could only rely on the strength of the officials, experts, and scholars. At most, he could only play a coordinating role. The era of Ouyang Shuo personally arranging the territory's planning was long gone. The implementation of the Great Western Development Strategy would lead to the upgrading of some industries. Taking advantage of this opportunity, the planting area of mulberry gardens in the territory would show explosive growth. Ouyang Shuo took advantage of the situation and delegated the management of colorful silkworm breeding from the Department of Industry of the Finance Department to the local prefectures and counties. The specific coordination work was handed over to the Textile Association. Not only that, whether it was the Chamber of Commerce or individual businesses, they could all carry out colorful silkworm breeding. Hearing that the Marquis's mansion was going to open the door to colorful silkworm breeding, the people in charge of the large Chamber of Commerce were wild with joy. They immediately expressed that they would invest a huge amount of money to rent land in the western region to plant mulberry trees and raise silkworms. As successful businessmen, they knew the profits of colorful silk very well. There was no free lunch in the world. If the Chamber of Commerce wanted to obtain the colorful silkworm breeding technology, they had to pay a large amount of technology transfer fees to the Finance Department. At the same time, they had to promise not to leak the technology to a third party. After several rounds of negotiation, the technology transfer fee was finally set at 5,000 gold coins. In this way, the technology transfer fees paid by the Chamber of Commerce would be enough to support the investment in the early stage of the Great Western Development Strategy. To be continued. Chapter 302. On the 25th day of the 12th month of the first year of Gaia, a system announcement resounded throughout the China server. System announcement. On the first anniversary of the game's operation, the system will be holding a second system auction on the first day of January in the second year of Gaia at 10 in the morning. When the time comes, there will be many rare treasures being auctioned. Please look forward to it. Friendly reminder: please prepare your funds in advance, otherwise you will return empty-handed. As soon as the announcement was made, the feudal lords all rubbed their hands in glee. In the first system auction, Ouyang Shuo was in the limelight, monopolizing 5 out of 10 items. The effect of the auction had already been fully reflected through the 3 battles. It was exactly with the help of the technical manuals that the army of Shanghai County had obtained from the auction that they had been able to perform well in the battles and earn a lot of contribution points. Even though they had just gone through a food crisis, the territories with deep foundations had already walked out of the financial crisis, who didn't have a few thousand gold coins in their hands. Therefore, the second system auction was bound to be even more intense. Ouyang Shua didn't want to miss it either. Just yesterday, the finance department had calculated the income and expenditure of the territory for December. After the territory had fully implemented the prefecture and county system, the finance and tax reform plan that Ingyu had previously mentioned had been officially approved by Ouyang Shua after being revised by the team of experts, and was put into effect. According to the reform plan, the taxes collected at the county level would be turned over to the prefectural government according to a certain proportion, and the taxes collected at the prefectural level, including the separately established cities, would be turned over to the prefectural government according to a certain proportion, which was currently the Marquis Mansion of Lianzhou. Different types of taxes required different proportions of payment. Also in December, the territory's tax rate was adjusted to 15%, and the tax revenue doubled. In December, Shanghai Prefecture paid 15,500 gold coins in taxes, Tianfeng Prefecture paid 7,500 gold coins in taxes, Beihai City paid 14,500 gold coins in taxes, including the profits from the Northern Twilight Saltworks. Yishui County paid 3,500 gold coins in taxes, and Gushan County paid 1,000 gold coins in taxes, for a total of 42,000 gold coins. The Wolf Mountain Mine, which was under the direct jurisdiction of the Ministry of Finance, turned in 8,500 gold coins of profit, the Three Flower Winery turned in 7,500 gold coins of profit, and the Mulberry Garden and other industries turned in 4,000 gold coins of profit, for a total of 20,000 gold coins. The 2 items added up to 62,000 gold coins. The expenses of Marquis Lianzhou's mansion mainly consisted of military expenses, administrative expenses, and financial transfer payments. The military expenses accounted for the majority of the expenses, including the salaries and other expenses for the 3 divisions, the Forbidden Brigade and the North Sea Fleet, which amounted to 27,500 gold coins. The administrative expenses mainly included the various departments of the Marquis Manor, the 4 major military workshops, the military factory in the cave, the Southwest University China Hall, and the military lecture hall that was currently under construction. The total expenditure was about 4,500 gold coins. Among them, the military workshops and factories accounted for the majority of the administrative expenses. Of course, when the military equipment was sold to the public, it would no longer be a financial burden. Instead, it would become one of the main sources of revenue. The financial transfer payments included 4,000 gold coins for the official road project, 3,500 gold coins for the city wall project of Tianfeng City, 5,000 gold coins for the city wall project of Shanghai City, 2,000 gold coins for the construction of the military martial arts lecture hall, and 1,500 gold coins for the Gushan County, for a total of 16,000 gold coins. The total cost of the 3 items added up to 48,000 gold coins. In total, the territory had a net revenue of 15,000 gold coins in December. Whether it was the payment of taxes or the transfer payments, they were all done through the branches of the Bank of the Four Seas in the various prefectures and counties. After Ingyu's coordination, the Bank of the Four Seas Banknote Printing Bureau had been officially established. The papermaking workshop and printing workshop were built behind the Bank of the Four Seas headquarters, and Meng Jida was personally in charge of it. Of course, it would still take some time before the actual banknote was issued. Because he had paid the 5,000 gold coins for the army's trial, Ouyang Shua only had 105,000 gold coins left in his storage pouch. Therefore, the net revenue for December was all intercepted by Ouyang Shua. The two items added up to 120,000 gold coins, which was also all of Ouyang Shua's funds for participating in the auction. At the edge of the 100,000 mountains, a young man stumbled along the mountain path while leaning on a tree branch. The young man had traveled a long distance and was covered in dust. His hair was messy, and upon closer inspection, there were even some bird droppings hanging on it. The man's face was dark, his eyes were sunken, and his cheeks were loose. He seemed to be a sleepy and hungry traveler. Upon closer inspection, the young man's clothes were already tattered. Through the holes in his clothes, one could see that the man's body was covered in wounds. Blood had seeped into his clothes, sticking the linen clothes tightly to his flesh. Some of the wounds had already scabbed over, and some were infected and oozing pus. The wounds were not only scratched by thorns, but there were also some that were obviously caused by sharp blade. All of this indicated that the young man was not as simple as a traveler. The man's willpower was extremely tenacious. Hunger and injuries could not shake him in the slightest. His eyes were resolute and full of spirit. Facing the morning sun, the young man finally successfully walked out of the 100,000 mountains. A relieved smile appeared on his face. Perhaps it was because he had finally relaxed, but just as the man wanted to take a step forward and continue forward, his body suddenly stopped listening to him, and he powerlessly collapsed to the ground. Hunger and drowsiness attacked him like a tide. The man finally could not take it anymore and directly fainted. "Warrior, wake up! Wake up!" The patrolling soldiers discovered the fainted man on the ground. "Captain, he seems to have fainted. Check to see if there's any sign. This person came out of the 100,000 mountains and is unusual." "Hey!" The soldier searched the man's body and suddenly found an iron sign. "Captain, there really is a sign. Let me see." The captain took the sign and his eyes narrowed. This is the sign of the Military Intelligence Department." "The Military Intelligence Department. Quick, this person must be a spy who entered the mountains to investigate. Quickly carry him to the medical center for treatment. I'll inform the Lord." "Yes." It was already night when Ling Qian woke up. Out of professional habit, he vigilantly checked his surroundings and found that he was in a medical center. Not only had he changed into clean clothes, but his wounds had also been properly treated. "Seems like he's saved." Ling Qian breathed a sigh of relief. At this moment, a doctor pushed the door open and entered. Seeing that Ling Qian had woken up, he smiled and said, "Warrior, you're awake? Good, good, good. I'll get someone to prepare some food for you." Hearing this, Ling Qian was really hungry. His stomach was growling. He had not eaten for 2 days and 3 nights. He said gratefully, "Thank you, sir." "No need, no need. Warrior, you were sent here by the city defense camp. The county magistrate specially came to see you. Seeing that you were unconscious and did not disturb you, I dare not neglect you," the doctor said as he left the room to prepare a midnight snack. Ling Qian secretly felt lucky. He remembered that he should have fainted at the edge of the mountains. It seemed that he was found by the patrolling soldiers of the Gushan County City Defense Camp and brought back to the medical center for treatment. The journey to the 100,000 mountains was full of twists and turns. The hardships were not worth mentioning to outsiders. A month ago, he brought more than 10 capable spies from the Military Intelligence Department to investigate the mountains. He was the only one who came back alive. Even the hummingbird that accompanied him died a violent death. It was really dangerous and unpredictable. Just as Ling Qian was deep in thought, the door was pushed open again. This time, other than the doctor, the magistrate of Gushan County, Lei Fan, also came in. The doctor put down the food box and tactfully left the room. He closed the door again. As for what the magistrate wanted to talk about with the patient, he did not care and did not dare to care. Lei Fan had seen Ling Qian before. Before Ling Qian entered the mountains, the two had communicated for a while. He was also the first person to notice the abnormality of the mountain barbarians and had been waiting for news from the military intelligence department. What made him feel strange was that, after the investigation team of the military intelligence department entered the 100,000 mountains, there was no news from them. It was as if they had disappeared into thin air. How could he not be anxious? The conversation between the two was not as confidential as the doctor in the medical center thought. Since the establishment of the territory, the military and the government had been separated. Therefore, although Lei Fan was the magistrate, he had no right to ask about the performance of the military intelligence department's mission. Lei Fan was just doing his duty as a host and expressing his concern. He knew that Ling Qian was not only one of the 3 giants of the military intelligence department, but was also highly regarded by the Marquis. His future was limitless. After Lei Fan left, Ling Qian ate a simple meal and recovered his strength before leaving the medical center. Gushan County was close to the 100,000 mountains and was also at the edge of the territory. It was the focus of the 1st Military Intelligence Department. In order to collect information, the 1st Military Intelligence Department had set up a contact point in Gushan County. The contact point was so secretive that even Gushan County did not know about it. Ling Qian left the medical center and rushed there as soon as he could. Leader. Seeing Ling Qian, the spy who stayed at the contact point was overjoyed. Ling Qian waved his hand and said, "Don't say anything, don't ask anything. Prepare 2 fast horses for me. Tomorrow morning, I will rush back to the headquarters to meet the Marquis." "Yes, sir." The spy was well trained and immediately turned to prepare. Ling Qian nodded and found the hummingbird at the contact point. He reported the general situation of this trip to the headquarters of the Military Intelligence Department through the hummingbird. If there were no accidents, the headquarters of the Military Intelligence Department would receive the news tomorrow morning at the latest. It had been more than half a year since they received the hummingbird contributed by the Mystic Bird Tribe. Under Ouyang Shua's instructions, the Military Intelligence Department had bred a large number of hummingbirds and built a complete communication network with the hummingbird as the core. If the hummingbird that Ling Qian brought with him on this trip had not been accidentally discovered by the enemy and died, there would not have been no news for a month. After making the arrangements, Ling Qian returned to his room to rest. The night passed uneventfully. Early the next morning, Ling Qian quietly left Gushan County and went straight to Shanghai City. Just as Ling Qian set off, the headquarters of the Military Intelligence Department had already received the news from Ling Qian. The Director General of the Military Intelligence Department, Song San, received the news and immediately rushed to the Marquis's residence to report. To be continued. Chapter 303. When Song San walked into the manor, Ouyang Shua was doing his morning exercises. Ever since the inner cannon of the Yellow Emperor had broken through to the 5th level, Ouyang Shua's physical fitness had greatly improved. Whether it was strength, speed, vision, or hearing, they had all improved. His inner force could be said to have achieved a small success. Under the drive of his powerful inner force, the Yang family's spear technique and 8 extremities fist had also improved by leaps and bounds. Especially the Yang family's spear technique. With the heavenly demon spear, Ouyang Shua was like a fish in water. His spear technique improved at a speed visible to the naked eye. Under the infusion of inner force, the black spearhead flashed with a dazzling golden light. As his personal strength increased, Ouyang Shua's temperament also changed bit by bit. He had the magnanimity of a lord, majestic without being angry, but also the cold, murderous aura of a general, iron-blooded and domineering. The 2 completely different temperaments blended together, forming Ouyang Shua's unique style. The two-faced Azura from his previous life seemed to have returned. The only difference was that in this life, he stood higher and saw further. After finishing, Ouyang Shua saw Song San standing at the door and asked, "What's the matter?" Reporting to Marquis, Ling Qian has safely returned to Gushan County and is on his way back to the headquarters. Good. Ouyang Shua heaved a sigh of relief. Wait in the study, I will be there soon. Yes. Song San left. Ouyang Shua returned to the main courtyard, changed his clothes, ate something simple, and hurried to the study. Tell me, what's going on? According to the information sent by Ling Qian, he has already investigated the reason for the mountain barbarians' migration. All the mountain barbarians have migrated to a place called Chiyu City in Wu Prefecture. Chiyu City? Ouyang Shua was shocked. That's right, the one occupying Wu Prefecture is the Jili tribe that appeared in the wilderness after the Battle of Zhuolu. Song San had participated in the Battle of Zhuolu, so he knew this period of history very well. Although Chiyu was killed by Shi Wansui in the Battle of Zhuolu, as the leader of the camp, he would immediately be resurrected after the battle and once again lead the Jili tribe that appeared in the wilderness. However, didn't Gaia say that the Yellow Emperor tribe, the Yen Emperor tribe, and the Jili tribe were hidden tribes? Why would the Jili tribe appear in the wilderness in such a high-profile manner and recruit soldiers so brazenly? If the one who recruited the mountain barbarians was Chiyu, then everything could be explained. In the final moments of the Zhuolu battle, Chiyu led his troops to flee to the ferocious Dawn Valley. That night, Chiyu arranged for his 4 brothers to lead a group of clansmen to the south and escape to the deep mountains and forests in the south. This part of the Jili tribe became the Miao tribe and the Barbarian tribe. Therefore, Chiyu could be called the ancestor of the mountain barbarians. Once he appeared, the mountain barbarians would bow down to him. When Ling Qian returns, tell him to come see me immediately. Ouyang Shua's expression was solemn. Understood. Song San bade farewell and left, leaving Ouyang Shua alone in the study room to ponder. Ling Qian rode at top speed and arrived at Shanghai City in the afternoon. Upon his return, he immediately rushed to the Marquis's manor to report. Ouyang Shua called by Qi and Tian Wenjing over for a discussion. Ling Qian began to report the detailed information he had. I secretly followed the migrating mountain barbarian tribes all the way north, crossing over mountains and ridges. It took me half a month to walk out of the 100,000 mountains. Chiyu City was built at the foot of the 100,000 mountains. It occupied an area of about 60 square kilometers. Countless farmlands were opened up outside the city. Therefore, after the mountain barbarians migrated there, they didn't have to worry about not having enough food to last through the winter. The totem flag erected on top of the city was identical to the flag of the Jili tribe during the Battle of Zhuolu. That was why I was alarmed and sneaked into the city with spies to investigate. What we didn't expect was that other than the Jili tribe's clansmen, there were only mountain barbarians in Chiyu City. There wasn't a single Han refugee. Before we could investigate further, we were seen through by the patrolling soldiers in the city. We could only flee in a sorry state. The brothers who followed me were all killed in order to cover my retreat. At this point, Ling Qian lost control of his emotions. The eyes of the iron-blooded man were actually glistening with tears. Those spies were the elites of the military intelligence Team 1. They had followed him through fire and water. Although they were subordinates, they were better than brothers. How could he not feel the pain? Ouyang Shua fell silent. In order to protect his territory, many good men had died in foreign lands. Ling Qian paused for a moment to stabilize his emotions before continuing. There's also a kind of spirit bird in Chiyu City. It's somewhat similar to their totem bird. This bird is very spiritual, even more powerful than hummingbirds. After I escaped from the city, I was chased by the spirit bird and fled all the way. The hummingbird was discovered by the spirit bird and died a violent death. Although Ling Qian downplayed it, anyone could imagine how dangerous the situation was at that time. His comrades were all killed, and the hummingbird that delivered the information was also killed. He had to survive and bring the information back to the base camp. Along the way, Ling Qian had gone through countless battles and escaped death countless times. In the wilderness, he had been woken up from his sleep countless times. Even so, Ling Qian didn't give up. With his rich anti-tracking experience and experience in the jungle, he successfully got rid of his pursuers and walked out of the 100,000 mountains alive despite the lack of food. Ouyang Shuo saw that Ling Qian's eyes were bloodshot and that his body hadn't recovered to its best state. He said in a warm voice, "You did well. Go and rest. The military office will compensate the families of the soldiers who died twice the standard pension so that they don't have to worry about food and clothing." "Thank you, Marquis." Ling Qian endured the pain and left. "What do you think?" Ouyang Shuo asked Bai Qi and Tian Wenjing for their opinions. Tian Wenjing was a senior official in charge of the mountain barbarian affairs in the territory. With such a thing happening to the mountain barbarians, his duty had actually come to an end. What they had to consider now was how to end it. After pondering for a moment, Tian Wenjing said, "There's no need to say more about Chiyo's influence on the mountain barbarians. No matter how we deal with the relationship with Chiyu City in the future, the most important thing now is to deal with the mountain barbarian forces in the territory." Ouyang Shuo's eyes focused and said, "Go on." The mountain barbarians living in the territory include the mountain barbarian soldiers and their families in the army, the mountain barbarian settlements in the eastern suburbs of Shanghai City, the mountain barbarian tribes that still live in the mountains around the Wolf Mountain Mine, and Gushan County. There are too many unstable factors among them. They might be tempted by the messengers sent by Chiyu and become disloyal, so we have to guard against them. Especially Gushan County, where all the people living are mountain barbarians and it's close to the 100,000 mountains. It's the most dangerous place. How? Ouyang Shuo remained calm and collected. First, the mountain barbarian soldiers. The heavy infantry made up of mountain barbarian soldiers is the trump card of the territory. Once something happens, the consequences will be unimaginable. I can't say much about the restrictions of the army, but I believe that General Eli and General Eli will definitely have a way. I'm thinking of moving all the relatives of the mountain barbarian soldiers to Shanghai City and settle down there. Ouyang Shuo nodded and looked at Bai Qi, saying, "General, take some time to visit the 3rd Division." "Don't worry," Bai Qi said concisely. Second, the mountain barbarian settlements in the eastern suburbs of Shanghai City. The mountain barbarian tribes that have settled down there are the first batch of mountain barbarians who submitted to the territory. They have experienced a good harvest of food and live a prosperous life. They have basically integrated into the life of the territory. Therefore, it's enough to monitor them a little. There's no need to make a big fuss about it. Third, the mountain barbarian tribes that still live in the mountains around the Wolf Mountain Mine. They have the Mystic Bird tribe as their core. Most of the children in the tribe have already held important positions in the army and are living a relatively prosperous life. No matter what, whether they are willing or not, they must go down the mountain and settle down there. Otherwise, they are a bunch of time bombs that can be detonated at any time. As for the place to settle down, I suggest that we choose the western suburbs. It just so happens that the implementation of the Western development strategy requires a lot of labor. At the same time, the Wolf Mountain garrison also needs to be replaced. Fourth, Gushan County. Gushan County is a completely autonomous county of mountain barbarians. They have not established a strong enough bond with the territory, so they are the most vulnerable group to be instigated. I suggest that we should move the entire Gushan County to the west and arrange for the army to closely monitor it. Ouyang Shuo basically agreed with the first few suggestions. When Tian Wenjing said the last one, Ouyang Shuo frowned and said, "This method is not appropriate. Let's not talk about whether they have disloyalty or not. If we do this, the mountain barbarians will no longer be truly close to us. The knot in their hearts will never be erased. Not only that, it will easily make the other mountain barbarians feel bitterly disappointed. It will make the policy of equality of all races in the territory useless. This is very inappropriate. But, Yangon, you don't need to say anything. I have made up my mind. Gushan County's autonomous policy of mountain barbarians must not be changed. Yes. Tian Wenjing let out a sigh. Don't worry. I will ask Lei Fan to come over another day and have a deep discussion with him. Based on my understanding of Lei Fan, he's not a short-sighted person, he's someone with a deep mind. He should know that staying in the territory is far more promising than running away to Chiyu City. Otherwise, he would not have reported the abnormality of the mountain barbarians in the first place. Marquis Jun is wise. Yangon, you have to personally go to persuade the mountain barbarian tribes to go down the mountain. The key to this trip is still the Grand Shaman of the Mystic Bird tribe. Yangon, bring a gift and personally visit the Grand Shaman with my greetings. As for the matter of Chiyu City, you can also disclose it to the Grand Shaman. The Grand Shaman is a true wise man. He will understand. Although he had only met the Grand Shaman once, he had already left a deep impression on Ouyang Shua. Yes. Ouyang Shua looked at Bai Qi and said, we also need to take some precautions on military matters. It's time to put the 3,000 soldiers into temporary reserve duty to use. Set up a garrison camp to replace the Wolf Mountain garrison. The remaining 2,500 soldiers will be organized into an independent brigade under the command of the Eastern City Camp. They will be responsible for guarding Gushan County. This is very appropriate. Bai Qi nodded in agreement. Ouyang Shua believed that even if Chiyu was hostile to him, he would not choose this time to stir up trouble. For an ambitious person like him, strengthening his own forces was the most important thing. To be continued. Chapter 304. After the discussion was settled, Shanghai City was in an uproar again. Tian Wenjing personally went to the Mystic Bird tribe to meet the Great Shaman. He explained the pros and cons and requested the Great Shaman to coordinate the settlement of the tribes. If any tribe was stubborn and insisted on some tribal tradition, Shanghai City would have no choice but to deal with them. No one could stop the determination of Shanghai City to eliminate the hidden dangers. Bai Qi selected a battalion and stationed it in the Wolf Mountain mine. He personally led the reorganized independent brigade to Gushan County to arrange the border defense. He also inspected the 3rd Division to appease the soldiers. The next day, the Gushan County magistrate Lei Fan hurried to Shanghai City. Ouyang Shua and Lei Fan talked in secret for the whole morning. No one knew the specific content of the conversation. They only knew that when Lei Fan left the Marquis' mansion, he had a lot on his mind. He did not rest and directly returned to Gushan County. The combination of punches dazzled the eyes of the audience. On the 27th of December, Lei Fan returned to Gushan County and immediately organized the migration of more than 15,000 mountain barbarians to the west. They would move to the western suburbs of Shanghai City and build a settlement there to live and work in peace. These mountain barbarians were the relatives of the mountain barbarian soldiers in the army. On the same day, Bai Qi led the independent brigade to the military camp of Gushan County. Bai Qi inspected the border between Gushan County and the 100,000 mountains. He began to build trenches, sentry towers, hidden sentries, and other defensive facilities. He pushed the defensive line deep into the 100,000 mountains. Any movement in the mountains could not escape the detection of the hidden sentries. On the 29th of December, the mountain barbarian tribes left their strongholds under Tian Wenjing's carrot and stick tactic. They moved to the west and threw themselves into the wave of development in the west. Ouyang Shua personally received the Great Shaman of the Mystic Bird tribe in the Marquis' mansion of Lian Province. After not seeing him for half a year, the Great Shaman's health was deteriorating. He needed help to walk. Even so, Ouyang Shua still admired the wisdom of the Great Shaman. It was more appropriate to say that the conversation between the two was Ouyang Shua's humble inquiry. This old man's wisdom benefited him greatly every time he met him. The high standard of courtesy that the great shaman received caused a whirlwind among the mountain barbarians. Ouyang Shua's action fully showed that he valued the mountain barbarians as a lord. He treated them equally and did not discriminate. He firmly implemented the policy of equality for all tribes. This action also caused a small interlude. The former chief of the Tianfeng tribe, Dari Achi, who had been living leisurely in Shanghai City, represented the Grassland tribe and requested for the Grassland tribe to enjoy equal treatment in their territory. Ouyang Shua took advantage of the situation and promised that as long as the tribes of the Grassland came to join him, there would be no discrimination and they would be treated well. Amidst the clamor, December finally came to an end. On the December 30th of the first year of Gaia, a system announcement resounded throughout the world. World announcement. On the first anniversary of Earth-On's launch, the game will undergo an update, effective immediately. For the details, please check the official website. Only Ouyang Shua's heart trembled. As far as he could remember, there were no updates on the first anniversary in his previous life. His existence had already begun to affect the progress of the game. Ouyang Shua immediately logged into the official website to check the update. Compared to the first major update, this update was more fragmented, more like a game patch. 1. Added NPC aptitude settings. NPC aptitude is divided into 4 grades: A, B, C, and D. The higher the NPC's aptitude, the greater their potential and the easier it is for them to break through the bottleneck of their profession. Of course, historical figures were not included in the assessment. According to the ratio given by Gaia, A accounted for 0.05%, B for 495%, C for 35%, and D for 60%. The exact number was affected by the characteristics of the territory, so there would be slight fluctuations. An NPC with an A-grade aptitude was a strong candidate for high-level talents such as high-ranking generals and grandmasters. They were also the most valuable wealth in the territory. According to the ratio, only one NPC with an A-grade aptitude would spawn out of 2,000 refugees. The introduction of the aptitude settings was beneficial to the feudal lords. It could reduce the burden on the feudal lords, making it easier to select talent. Although aptitude did not represent everything, it was at least a very intuitive reference. 2. Remove the setting of feudal lord players being unable to leave the territory. Feudal lord players can be like adventurer players. They can use teleportation arrays to freely travel between the various major cities without any restrictions. Similarly, the players who settled down in the territory will regain their freedom of movement and can teleport freely. The location of the second system auction was chosen to be held at the largest auction house in the capital. It was no longer an independent auction space like the previous one. It gave the feudal lords a platform to fully communicate with each other. Ouyang Shua was truly dumbfounded by this setting. If he remembered correctly, the feudal lord players in the game were not allowed to leave the territory in his previous life until his reincarnation. How did such a change happen in just a year? It really caught him off guard. 3. Changed the setting of teleportation fees. Teleportation to the battle map will no longer charge teleportation fees. Teleportation of players, be it between territories or between the capital cities, will cost a unified fee of 1 gold coin, paid by the player. The territory will receive half of the teleportation fees collected when players use the teleportation arrays in the territory. Ouyang Shua heaved a sigh of relief when he learned that teleportation to the battle map was free. According to his current title, he was allowed to lead 30,000 troops in the next battle. Just the teleportation fees alone would cost 30,000 gold coins. Gaia once again found its conscience and sought benefits for the feudal lord players. If any feudal lord was open-minded enough to open up the territory to adventurer players, just the teleportation fees alone would be a considerable amount of profit. 2 and 3. The purpose of the updates was to promote communication between players. For the feudal lords, the difficulty of managing the groups of players who settled down or temporarily came to the territory would increase exponentially. Compared to the ability of the feudal lord, it would put forward a higher requirement. 4. The 9 capital cities increased the entry tax. The tax rate was 5%, only half of the super auction platform. The capital cities increased the tax to encourage the feudal lords to open up trade routes through the wilderness, bypassing the super auction platform, and directly transport goods to the capital cities for sale. Opening up trade routes in the wilderness was a step that had to be taken sooner or later. In the future, the super auction platform might no longer exist, and it would completely become face-to-face transactions. 5. Removed the setting of not being able to gain EXP from the battle map. Not being able to gain EXP from the battle map, especially the fact that soldiers could not advance through the battle map, had always been criticized by the feudal lord. Gaia finally showed mercy and removed this setting. 6. Increase rage value setting. The general specialty requires rage value to activate in order to take effect. The setting of aggro was undoubtedly a weakness for historical generals. The specialties that a general possessed were no longer permanent buff. In theory, one could only choose to activate one specialty at a time. Ouyang Shua could not help but speculate that Gaia's updating of this setting was specifically targeted at him. In his previous life, no feudal lord had managed to recruit so many historical generals in the first year. 7 is Special Bandit Camp setting. A large number of special bandit camps will randomly spawn in the wilderness. Special bandit camps will have more than 10,000 people. The high-level bandit camps in the wilderness are no match for the territorial army. In order to increase the difficulty of the game, Gaia came up with a bad idea and created a special bandit camp. 8. Added hidden job setting. Be it an adventurer job or a lifestyle job, they all have a special inherited job, which is the so-called hidden job. Gaia did not reveal the specific job, so it was up to the players to figure it out themselves. Gaia also made it clear that at the annual auction, a hidden job trial scroll would be publicly auctioned. The adventurer players, who did not pay much attention to the auction, began to look forward to the auction the next day as if they were on steroids. It had to be noted that the inherited job was not limited to players. NPCs could also take up the job. 9. Added Secret Realms setting. The wilderness will randomly spawn some secret realms at random times, waiting for players to explore. Once a secret realm is cleared, it will disappear forever. By exploring a secret realm, there is a chance to obtain divine weapons or martial arts manuals. Everything is possible. Apart from the secret realms spawned in the wilderness, there is also an item called a secret realm map. It can directly activate a temporary secret realm, allowing players to easily clear it without any competition. This was another setting targeted at adventurer players. It meant that adventurer players were beginning to receive Gaia's attention. They were finally no longer the stepchildren. 10. Added fortuitous encounter mission setting. Either the capital or the wilderness can trigger a fortuitous encounter mission. When players create a character and choose a random spawn location, it is possible to trigger the fortuitous encounter system. Unfortunately, players had just entered the game and were powerless. Even if they were lucky and triggered a fortuitous encounter, there was a high chance that they would die tragically due to a lack of strength. It was different now. Players' strength had improved by leaps and bounds, and they had the ability to complete fortuitous encounter missions. In short, from this day forth, the gaming lives of adventurer players would become more colorful. Instantly, be it the forums or the national channel, they were all taken over by adventurer players. Boo-hoo! It's finally time for us adventurer players to stand out. The wheels of history roll forward, and a new generation replaces the old. Don't say I have no clothes, I want to snatch the headlines with you. Ouyang Shua was shot down even though he was lying down. Liberating surf, sing, sing. Black is black. With the fortuitous encounter in hand and the manuals in hand, I'm invincible. Cliff jumping team. Hey, sign up quickly. Great God, Gaia has finally remembered us. It's not easy. Fearless first-year gang leader of the school is recruiting lackeys. I won't be waiting after the deadline. Ouyang Shuo was not in the mood to pay attention to the revelry of adventurer players. He was thinking about how the update would affect the development of the territory and how it would affect his plans. To be continued. Chapter 305. Just when Ouyang Shuo was weighing the pros and cons, another wave arose before the first wave had even subsided. In the afternoon of the same day, another system announcement sounded. World announcement. On the first anniversary of Earth's operation, the game will release its first expansion pack, Rise Up. For the details, please check the official website. Gaia unleashed his ultimate moves one after another. It was really lovable and hateful. Rising Up was a peasant uprising. It existed in every country, such as the Spartax uprising, the Sicilian slave uprising, the Scottish uprising, the German Peasant War, and so on. Of course, peasant uprisings were the most frequent in China. Peasant uprisings occurred most frequently in China, and they were also the most ferocious, directly or indirectly overthrowing several dynasties. In the game, Gaia would choose the most representative leader of the peasant uprising and arrange for them to appear in the wilderness. They would gather refugees and set off wave after wave of uprisings, directing their weapons at the various feudal lords. The refugees in the wilderness were not the only ones who joined the rebellion. Roving bandits and bandits could also complete a glamorous transformation, turning looting into enforcing justice on behalf of heaven. If the territory's people's will was not up to standard, or the taxes were too high, or the corvée was too heavy, or the people did not have enough to eat, and so on, it was possible that the people would join the rebellion and overthrow the Lord's rule. Not only that, but the peasant uprising would also sweep away a large number of refugees, which in turn would affect the number of refugees spawning in the territory. If the territory's security wasn't up to standard, there might even be a situation where no refugees spawned. Gaia obviously did not want to let the Lord develop in peace, so he constantly set up obstacles and arranged opponents for the Lord. In the first year, there were wild beasts, roving bandits, and bandits in the wilderness. In the second year, there was the special class roving bandit camp and the peasant uprising army. In the future, there would definitely be even more brutal existences. As the territory's strength increased, the opponents arranged by Gaia would only become stronger. The second year of Gaia would become a year of turmoil, through and through. The territories that could withstand it would be reborn from the ashes, while the territories that could not could only dejectedly retreat. Everything had its pros and cons. If he could lead an army to defeat the rebel army, not only would he be able to capture a large number of people, but he would also be able to earn a large number of contribution points and raise his noble rank. At this moment, the law of the jungle was on full display. The strong get stronger, the weak get weaker, survival of the fittest, survival of the fittest. It wasn't hard to imagine that, apart from the Mountain Sea territory, it would be very difficult for a single territory to survive the wave of uprisings. Alliances and alliances would become the general trend. In the near future, alliances of various sizes would spring up like bamboo shoots after the rain. The Mountain and Sea Alliance and Yan-Huang Alliance, the two giants of the China server, once again became the focus of the Lord players. As the saying went, it was good to enjoy the shade under a big tree. If he could join one of the two great alliances, he wouldn't have to worry about anything. At the very least, he would have a fighting chance. It was a pity that neither the Mountain and Sea Alliance nor the Yan-Huang Alliance would easily lower their standards to recruit new members. It was better to have nothing than to have something substandard. It would never go out of style. At this moment, it was the best time for an ambitious and ruthless person to rise. There was no lack of ambitious people in the top 100 territories. Although they didn't have Ouyang Shua's enormous influence, they could still form a regional alliance. In particular, the prevalence of the Lianzhou model not long ago had laid the groundwork for the outbreak at this time. Within 10 days, the situation had reversed. Now, it wasn't a problem of a big territory forcing a small territory to sign a contract, but a small territory asking for protection from a big territory. Otherwise, it would be difficult for them to survive this disaster. If Ouyang Shua remembered correctly, in the third year of Gaia in his previous life, the number of territories in the China server had decreased sharply, and there were less than 500 territories. As long as they weren't promoted to a county capital, they would basically be eliminated. His appearance had completely changed the structure of the China server, breaking the rule of Handan City's 6 hegemons, and giving more ambitious and ruthless people a chance to rise. Ouyang Shua still couldn't predict how the situation would develop in the future. Ouyang Shua shook his head, and continued to look at the content of the information. The China server had the most frequent peasant uprisings. Gaia chose the 4 most representative peasant uprisings in China's history, and threw them into the wilderness at once. Uprising name: Chen Xing and Wu Guang Uprising. Uprising time: end of Qin dynasty. Uprising leaders: Chen Xing, Wu Guang. Activity area: Central Plains. Uprising evaluation: the first large-scale peasant uprising in China's history. Uprising name: Yellow Turban Uprising. Uprising time: end of Eastern Han Dynasty. Uprising leaders: Zhang Jiao, Zhang Bao, Zhang Liang. Activity area: North. Uprising evaluation new: the largest peasant uprising in China's history organized in the form of a religious organization. Uprising name: Huang Chao Peasant Uprising. Uprising time: end of Tang Dynasty. Uprising leaders: Huang Chao. Activity area: Southeast. Uprising evaluation: the longest, largest, and most influential peasant uprising at the end of Tang Dynasty. Uprising name: Taiping Heavenly Kingdom Movement. Uprising time: Qing Dynasty. Uprising leaders: Hong Xiuquan, Yang Xiuqing, Li Xiuqing. Activity area: Southwest. Uprising evaluation: the largest peasant uprising in China's history. The environment in the game was completely different from the time of the uprising. Therefore, Gaia had restricted the 4 rebel groups to 4 major regions, which basically covered the China region. As for regions that were not affected, such as Jingzhou Island and Izhou Island, even if they were lucky and escaped the disaster, Gaia didn't pursue absolute fairness at all. Luck was also a form of strength. As the saying goes, there are pros and cons. Nothing is absolute. Jingzhou Island and Izhou Island were not connected to any royal city, and were isolated overseas. In Gaia's settings, the 2 islands were still in a barbaric period. The islands were filled with powerful beasts that were abnormally dangerous, and there were even wild beasts. In addition, there were a large number of aborigines living on the islands who hunted for a living. Think about it, to be able to survive on the islands that were filled with wild beasts, how strong would these aborigines be? These 2 factors made it very difficult for players to survive on the islands. Otherwise, when Ouyang Shua was choosing his birthplace, he wouldn't have chosen the Lianzhou Basin and would have been born on the island. The island was a paradise, but it was also a cage. Among the 4 rebel groups, Ouyang Shua was most concerned about the Taiping Heavenly Kingdom movement. This was because the birthplace of the Taiping Heavenly Kingdom movement was Jintian village in Xuanzhou, Guangxi. Xuanzhou was located to the north of the Lianzhou Basin. Once out of the Southern Guard Pass, one would enter the boundaries of Xuanzhou. As for Wuzhou, where Chiyu City was located, it was to the east of Xuanzhou. In other words, if Ouyang Shua wanted to enter the hinterland of Guangxi, he would have to deal with the Taiping Heavenly Kingdom. The Tianping Heavenly Kingdom was well organized, and it had many capable officials and generals. Could be said to be the most powerful group among the 4 rebel groups. It was no small matter. With the current strength of the Mountain Sea territory, it was impossible for them to fight against the Tianping Heavenly Kingdom at its peak. Fortunately, the eruption of the rebellion required a process of preparation. It would not explode all at once. In the beginning, the leader of the rebellion would lead a group of corps members to appear in the wilderness, recruit soldiers, and conquer a territory as a base. Then, they would continue to expand and occupy more territories. This cycle would repeat. Their ultimate goal was to establish a powerful regime, a nation. Therefore, the rebel group could be seen as a feudal lord group with a built-in bug. From the moment they were born, they would have their own corps members. Furthermore, they had the powerful ability to gather refugees. There would not be a situation where they were alone or had a weak foundation. Thus, the feudal lords could only lick their boot. Ouyang Shua could not help but pray for the territories that happened to be the birthplace of the rebel group. They would be the first victims. There was no way they could stop the massive rebel army. In his previous life, Ouyang Shua remembered that some unlucky feudal lords would simply surrender to the rebel group and seek an official position within the rebel group. Some of the feudal lords would really make a name for themselves and be in the limelight for a while. In fact, Gaia's setting was very free. After Gaia planted the rebel group in the wilderness, it would not interfere with the operation of the game. In other words, if the rebel group was really powerful and capable, or if the feudal lords were too useless, then the rebel group could really establish a nation in the wilderness and continue to survive. Gaia would not say that it would wait until the next expansion pack to eliminate the forces planted in the wilderness. Definitely not. If the feudal lords of a country could not defeat the rebel group in their own country, then it was very simple. The feudal lords of the country would have to be killed without any mercy. In the end, it would be up to the system's royal city to send troops to eliminate the rebel group. After that, the players of the country could only do village building quests, obtain a village creation token, and build a new level 1 village in the wilderness. Everything would have to start from scratch. This way, when a war broke out, the country would be at the mercy of the other countries. Therefore, the feudal lords surrendering to the rebel group was not necessarily a bad way out. If they could seek a high position in the rebel group, or even assist the rebel group to overcome all obstacles and make meritorious contributions, there was a possibility that they could become a founding hero and regain their title and fiefdom. At the end of the game, when the achievement points were tallied, the fiefdom would still be effective. This way, it would not only provide a chance of survival for the unlucky feudal lords, but it would also deduce the progress of the game to an even more complicated situation. This was a huge challenge for the feudal lords. Otherwise, why would there be players joking in his previous life that the feudal lords who could last in the wilderness were masochists? Under Gaia's continuous abuse, they were in pain and happiness. Ouyang Shua could only smile bitterly at this. What he could do now was to speed up the pace of unifying the Lianzhou Basin and win a safe and stable rear for his territory. As for the rest, he could only deal with it as it came. To be continued. Chapter 306. Gaia Year 2, January 1st, Capital. No matter how perverted the expansion pack released yesterday was, that was a matter for the future. What the players were most concerned about now was the second system auction. Walking on the bustling streets of the capital, Ouyang Shua could not help but sigh. Compared to the capital, his small land was really dilapidated. There was no comparison at all. The wide streets were filled with pedestrians and carriages. The shops on both sides were at least 2 stories high. They were richly ornamented, with green bricks and red tiles. There was a dazzling lineup of goods. It was an indescribable prosperity. Beside Ouyang Shua, there were 2 beauties, Song Jia and Binger. Compared to the hustle and bustle of the modern city, the ancient capital had its own charm. Brother, candied Haws. After coming to the capital, Binger's gluttonous nature was revealed. The little girl held a sugar figurine in her hand and stared at the candied Haws in the hands of the vendor. The smile in her eyes was overflowing. Ouyang Shua had not gone shopping with Binger for a long time. He felt guilty. He would do whatever he could. Brother, give me a skewer of candied haws. Ouyang Shua handed over a silver coin. No, 2 skewers. Song Jia suddenly said. Ouyang Shua was speechless. Was being a glutton contagious? The 2 beauties, each holding a skewer of candied haws, slowly walked on the street. They were eating with relish, attracting the attention of others. Danger suddenly descended. The man behind Ouyang Shua looked ordinary, but a sword suddenly appeared in his hand. The sharp blade was unsheathed, flickering with cold light. A sword light flashed, piercing towards Ouyang Shua's heart. Ouyang Shua was shocked. His scalp tingled and goosebumps appeared all over his body. Feeling the killing intent behind him, Ouyang Shua did not have time to think. At the critical moment, he dodged to the side and the sharp blade pierced into his chest, causing blood to flow. Ouyang Shua slid forward, instantly increasing the distance between him and the enemy. Turning around, he saw a young swordsman approaching him again. The sword in his hand was still stained with blood. Wui! Song Jia, who was walking in front, noticed the abnormality and exclaimed. With a swoosh, she raised her azure-edged sword and was about to rush over to help. Ouyang Shua didn't turn around. He was on high alert and said, "Don't come over, protect Bing-er." Song Jia's body froze, and she immediately stopped moving. She held on to Bing-er's small hand, protecting her by her side as she looked at Ouyang Shua worriedly. She could feel that the assassin's swordsmanship was extraordinary. The assassin didn't give Ouyang Shua any chance. After his first attack failed, he pounced forward once more. Ouyang Shua's expression turned cold. He didn't even have the chance to take out the heavenly devil spear from his storage pouch. If he was distracted, it would be possible for the other party to take advantage of his weakness. Fortunately, in addition to his spear skills, his 8 extremities fist was not just for show. A sword light flashed as Ouyang Shua executed the King of Hell's 3 points to parry his opponent's sword, and then he executed the Overlord's forceful rains to seize the sharp blade in his opponent's hand. The assassin wasn't an easy opponent to deal with. Seeing that the other party's adaptability had exceeded his expectations and was completely inconsistent with the information he had received, he didn't dare to be careless. He executed his sword moves in an airtight manner, not giving Ouyang Shua any chance at all. In the blink of an eye, Ouyang Shua's hands were already dripping with blood and had a few sword marks on them. If it wasn't for Ouyang Shua's tenacious character, he would have already cried out in pain. Gaia's simulation of pain was only able to weaken it by 50%. The 8 extremities fist was suitable for close combat. The assassin's vision was extremely sharp, so he immediately distanced himself from Ouyang Shua and started a guerrilla battle with him. Sword lights flashed unceasingly, leaving deep and shallow wounds on Ouyang Shua's body. Ouyang Shua felt sullen in his heart. Without a weapon in hand, it was inconvenient. In addition, he didn't have time to deal with the sword that pierced into his chest at the beginning. Once he moved, the wound would be torn open, causing blood to flow unceasingly. A large amount of blood loss caused his physical strength to rapidly decline, and he was already somewhat unable to concentrate. If this went on, it was very likely that he would bleed to death. Logically speaking, the assassin's current best method was to continue wasting time like this. Unfortunately, one mustn't forget that this was the most prosperous street in the capital. An assassination instantly caused the bustling street to be in an uproar, and the people were in chaos. It wouldn't be long before the experts from the 6 doors who were in charge of the capital's security would arrive. At that time, everything would be too late. Just at this moment, a sharp arrow pierced through the air from the 2nd floor of the street, accurately hitting Ouyang Shua's calf. The huge impact caused Ouyang Shua's body to stagger, and he almost knelt on the ground. Wui! Song Jia cried out in alarm. Her heart felt like it was being twisted by a knife, and she couldn't wait to immediately raise her sword to meet the attack. But Song Jia couldn't. Since someone shot an arrow from a high place, it meant that the other party had accomplices. She had to protect Bing Er's safety. She knew the position that the little girl held in Ouyang Shua's heart. Ouyang Shua knew that if this went on, he would undoubtedly die, and he might even implicate Song Jia and Bing Er. He could only take a risk. Ouyang Shua deliberately staggered, unable to stand, and knelt on one knee. Seeing this opportunity, the assassin once again pounced forward, aiming for Ouyang Shua's vital point. Ouyang Shua lowered his head, and a cruel sneer flashed past the corner of his mouth. Just at the moment when the sharp blade pierced towards him, he moved his body to the side, and the sharp blade pierced into his ribs below his abdomen. A piercing pain came from his abdomen. Ouyang Shua gritted his teeth, and cold sweat appeared on his forehead. He exerted his strength, loosened and tightened his bones, and firmly clamped the sharp blade between his ribs, making it impossible for the assassin to escape. Just as the assassin wanted to pull out his sword, he discovered that he couldn't pull it out and immediately felt that something was wrong. Unfortunately, it was too late. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Ouyang Shua's hand flashed with a white light, and the Sky Demon's spear appeared in his hand. Holding the Sky Demon's spear, Ouyang Shua's aura changed again, and it became bitingly cold and domineering. The moment the Sky Demon's spear appeared, it directly pierced towards the enemy. It seemed ordinary, but it was unavoidable. The assassin was startled, and he immediately let go of his sword, barely dodging the Sky Demon's spear's attack. Seeing that the experts of 6 doors were about to arrive, the assassin immediately flew into a rage out of humiliation. He didn't expect that he, a peak expert among adventure-type players, would be unable to deal with a Lord-level player. Marquis Lianzhou's skill is really surprising. After the assassin retreated, a white light flashed in his hand, and another treasured sword appeared. "Who are you people?" Ouyang Shua endured the sharp pain and coldly looked at the assassin. "Marquis Lianzhou, you don't need to beat around the bush. We are only doing this for money, and we are helping others eliminate disasters." Ouyang Shua frowned. Why did he feel that this sentence was somewhat familiar? A thought flashed through his mind and he blurted out, "You are Bloodshed? You? How did you know?" The assassin turned pale with fright, and he could no longer maintain his composure. It was as if the biggest secret in his heart was suddenly revealed to the public. Bloodshed was the most mysterious and powerful assassination organization in China in his previous life. Their style of doing things was the assassin's catchphrase just now: taking money, eliminating disasters for others. As long as they accepted the assassination mission, they would not stop until they were dead. No matter who it was, whether it was a feudal lord or a gang leader, they were all within the assassination range of Bloodshed. At their peak, Bloodshed was known to have no targets that they didn't dare to assassinate, which showed how arrogant they were. Previously, Bloodshed had always been in the stage of secret construction, and outsiders didn't even know of their existence. Calculating the time, it should be time for Bloodshed to appear. Ouyang Shua didn't expect that he would become the first assassination target of Bloodshed. Bloodshed wanted to use Ouyang Shua, a heavyweight assassination target, to rise to fame in one battle. The assassin didn't expect that his highly secretive identity would be seen through by Ouyang Shua. It was too strange. The assassin didn't know what to do. "You really are a blood edge." A cold smile flashed across Ouyang Shua's lip. "You tricked me." The assassin's face turned red. "No, how did you know the name of our organization?" "Since you dared to assassinate this marquis, then you should be prepared for Shanghai City's revenge." Ouyang Shua didn't know where the headquarters of Bloodshed was, and most of the members of Bloodshed were part-timers, so the organization didn't know the identity of the assassin. "Marquis Lianzhou, what a big tone." The assassin put on a brave front. Ouyang Shua shook his head, and stood up again with the support of the demonic spear. The wounds on his body were still bleeding, and his clothes were soaked, making him look like a man made of blood. Even so, no one dared to look down on him. Ouyang Shuo looked even more mysterious as he was able to see through the assassin's identity in an instant. The assassin was on guard, trying to see through Ouyang Shuo's real identity. With such a delay, the experts of Six Fan School would arrive soon. The assassin did not dare to take the risk and chose to retreat rationally. Once he was captured by the Six Fan School, his fate would be extremely miserable, and he wouldn't even be able to reincarnate. Marquis Lianzhou is indeed worthy of your reputation. See you next time. With that, the assassin's body jumped, and he instantly disappeared in the crowd. As expected of bloodshed, he did things swiftly and decisively, without any sloppiness. The retreat of the assassin didn't mean that the assassination was over. As long as Ouyang Shuo didn't die, he would always face the assassination of bloodshed. Their style was varied, and they were best at assassination. Today's arrangement was just to make a name for themselves, so they chose to assassinate Ouyang Shuo on the street. After the assassin left, Ouyang Shuo finally couldn't hold on any longer. Cough. Ouyang Shuo's body couldn't hold on any longer, and he coughed out a mouthful of blood. He had suffered internal injuries. Oi, brother! Song Jia and Bing ran over and supported Ouyang Shuo. Oi, are you okay? I'm fine. During the fight just now, Bing was extremely obedient. She didn't make a sound, nor did she cry or make a fuss. After the storm passed, the little girl finally couldn't hold on any longer. Looking at the bloodstains on her brother's body, tears welled up in her eyes, and she said crisply, "Brother, does it hurt?" Ouyang Shuo reached out his hand, wanting to touch the little girl's head to comfort her. Only when his hand was in the air did he realize that his hand was covered with bloodstains. "Baby, I'm fine." At this moment, the experts of the Six Fan School finally arrived late. Marquis. The leading constable walked to Ouyang Shuo. Ouyang Shuo nodded, described the assassin's appearance, and said, "I hope your government can give me an explanation." He was a marquis conferred by the imperial court. Now that he was assassinated in the capital, he naturally had the right to mobilize the power of the Six Fan School to pressure them. The constable's eyes narrowed, and he said solemnly, "Please rest assured, Marquis." Chapter 307. The Jingdu Auction House was located in the center of the business district. The entrance was already filled with people. No matter if it was a lord, a gang leader, or even a lone ranger, they all appeared. It was an unprecedented grand occasion. Using this opportunity, the Jingdu Auction House held a large-scale auction before the annual auction. It could be considered as a warm-up for the final banquet. There were all sorts of items in the special auction. Although they were not as rare as the annual auction, they were all high-quality items. The items were all gold grade and above, and they were all entrusted by high-level players. Not everyone could covet the treasures of the annual auction. Most of the players were only there to join in the fun. The special auction catered to the needs of these players. One could imagine how lively it was. At the entrance of the auction, a group of players gathered together. They looked anxious. "Why isn't the boss here yet? The auction is about to start. Did something happen? Jinx. Gaia must be a pain in the ass. They didn't even install a long-distance communication function." All right. Can't you guys be a little more patient? Wait a little longer. Say, could it be that the boss is shopping with sister-in-law and forgot the time? He values his lover over his friends. Little Lion, how dare you speak ill of the boss behind his back? Be careful of snitching, ah? Siege Lion was shocked. He forced a smile and said, "Ahaha, I knew you wouldn't do that, right? Haha, we are good brothers. Good brothers." 5 times Qingfeng Garden. What? Isn't that too much? Qingfeng Garden was the largest brothel in the Jingdu. One session would cost at least 100 gold. So it's off? Deal. Siege Lion cried silently. who asked him to court death. There was a saying that went, if you don't court death, you won't die. Feng Qiuhuang saw that the two were getting more and more ridiculous. She snorted, perverted ruffians. Sister Feng, we are very pure. What did you call me? Feng Qiuhuang immediately exploded in anger. She looked like she was about to flip out. Sun Long looked speechlessly at Siege Lion, who was courting death. He had a look of schadenfreude on his face. The Siege Lion wanted to die. Why couldn't it control its mouth? He licked his lips and said ingratiatingly, Sister Fengwu, my dear sister, I was wrong. It's true, truer than real gold. Feng Qiuhuang glared at him and ignored him. She turned around and started chatting with Bai Hua. The group of Mountain and Sea Alliance members standing guard at the entrance of the auction house was truly eye-catching. Not only were they famous, but Feng Qiuhuang and Bai Hua were also top-notch beauties. The assassination in the commercial street did not affect the bustling Jingdu at all. It was like a drop of rain falling into the sea. Under the accompaniment of Song Jia, Ouyang Shuo found a medical center, and after dressing his wounds, he hurriedly rushed to the auction house. No matter sex school. He did not want to was. And sect schools hall was. The scope of 6 fan schools' investigation was limited to the capital. They were powerless to investigate beyond the capital. As long as the assassins left the capital, they could basically get away with it. If Yang House, Sex Feng, Yun Clan, the sect, Hall 1, the Hall, the city sect, or Dynasty House. If Rang Ouyang Shua's current status was not high enough for 9 King City to mobilize. Compared to tracking the assassin of a Bloodshed, Ouyang Shuo was more concerned about who hired Bloodshed to act as the mastermind behind the scenes and kill him. As a lord, his level was not important. Reincarnating wouldn't be a big loss. The problem was that, after the system update, players had to stay in the reincarnation hall for half a day before they could come out. In this way, if Ouyang Shuo was assassinated and died, he would miss the system auction. The person behind the scenes was sinister. 10 minutes before the auction started, Ouyang Shuo and his group arrived at the auction. Ouyang Shuo's arrival caused a commotion. Ouyang Shuo was wrapped in bandages. If someone was not familiar with him, they would not be able to recognize him. Boss! Siege Lion was the first to run over. Stop looking. It's me. Ouyang Shuo was speechless when Siege Lion looked at him, as if he was a precious animal. Damn. Boss, did you peek at some girl taking a bath? How did you get beaten up like this? Siege Lion did not understand Ouyang Shuo's meaning, and continued to gossip. If it wasn't for his inconvenience, Ouyang Shuo really wanted to cut him. How could he be so heartless? He was injured. Little Shuo, what are you doing? Aunt Lin Jing and Xiexiyun walked over. The others also came over. I'll tell you after the auction. Let's go in first. The capital's auction house had specially prepared private rooms for the 10 territories and guilds. The members of the Mountain and Sea Alliance moved to Ouyang Shuo's private room. Along the corridor, Army Kill Ripper suddenly walked out of his private room. He had sharp eyes and immediately recognized Ouyang Shuo. His expression froze for a moment before he said mockingly, "Oh, isn't this Lord Wuri? How did you end up like this? Are you a spy?" Haha, Ouyang Shuo ignored Army Kill Ripper and walked into his private room. Bah! Army Kill Ripper's face was ashen as he returned to his private room. Ouyang Shuo was in the number 1 private room of the auction. It was more than enough to accommodate the members of the Mountain and Sea Alliance. After sitting down, Song Jia asked, "Wui, could it be Army Kill Ripper?" Army Kill Ripper was the representative of the Grey Forces. It was not strange that he would collude with Blood Edge. Ouyang Shuo shook his head. It doesn't seem like him. Army Kill Ripper had no motive. He hated Ouyang Shuo, but his financial resources were limited. It was difficult for him to do anything in the auction. There was no need to assassinate Ouyang Shuo to prevent him from participating in the auction. A dog that bites does not bark. Ouyang Shua suspected that it was Lord Chunshin's doing. In the first auction, Lord Chunshin was full of confidence. In the end, he was tricked by Ouyang Shua and returned empty-handed. For this auction, Lord Chunshin was definitely more prepared. He was even more apprehensive about Ouyang Shua's existence. "What are you two whispering about? Little Shua, what happened to your injury?" Since his little aunt asked, Ouyang Shua simply gave everyone a brief account of the assassination. For a moment, the private room was in an uproar. "Despicable! Bastard! Too despicable!" Xiesian frowned. "Blood Edge? Why wasn't there any news about it before? Maybe Rattlesnake knows a little." "That's right." Everyone wanted to continue talking. At this moment, the auction began. It was different from the first system auction. The second auction had a greater variety of items. There were a total of 108 items. Among them, the top 10 items were waiting for the final auction. Because there were so many items, the auction format was different from the first one. The auction was divided into 2 stages. The first stage was a secret auction. Players could bid for every item. The time limit was 1 hour. Every item only had 1 chance to bid. It could not be changed. After the bidding ended, the highest bidder would automatically win. Ouyang Shua held a small booklet in his hand. It introduced the list of items in detail. In the list of items, there were all kinds of scrolls, tokens, treasures, and weapon and equipment crafting manuals that Lord players needed. There were also equipment, pills, skill books, and cultivation techniques that adventurer-type players love. There were all sorts of items. Every item was dark gold grade. There were even 1 or 2 purple gold grade items. As for the final item, it continued Gaia's mysterious style, and was not revealed for the time being. Apart from Ouyang Shua, only Bai Hua, Feng Chihuang, and Snow Rose were looking forward to the final item. Everyone else had their eyes on the first batch of items. Ouyang Shua chose a territory characteristic scroll 1 and bid 2,000 gold coins. He did not bid anymore. His goal was to aim for the final item. Soon an hour passed. Ouyang Shua successfully obtained the territory characteristic scroll 1. Everyone else also obtained something. Bai Hua bought a shield crafting manual. Feng Chihuang bought a heavy sword crafting manual. Everyone was happy. The siege lion was the only item that he didn't get because the bid was too low. "Who told you to be stingy?" Dragon seeking acupuncture point revealed his trademark gloating expression. The siege lion wanted to cry. He felt that it must be because he did not look at the almanac when he went out today. The second stage was the real finale. The Capital Auction House's #1 auctioneer walked onto the stage. 10 beauties stood in a row behind the auctioneer, each of them holding a tray covered with a red silk cloth. After a simple opening, the auction began. "We will now begin the auction of the first item." The first beauty stepped forward and lifted the red silk cloth on the tray, revealing a token. The auctioneer introduced, "This is a silver grade village creation token. The starting bid is 10,000 gold coins, and the final bid is 30,000 gold coins. Everyone, please bid." As expected of the final item, the first item caused an uproar. If it was a year ago, such a rare village creation token would have been sold for an astronomical price. It was a pity that a year had passed, and the factions in the wilderness had already taken shape. Even with a silver grade village creation token, a lord would not be able to establish a foothold in the wilderness. Most importantly, even with money, one could only slowly rise in rank due to the limitations of one's title. Ouyang Shua made a decision. To others, the village creation token did not mean much, but to him, it was a godly item. 11,000 gold coins. Someone tried to bid. After bidding, no one else bid, and the auction fell into a rare silence. This sudden situation caused the auctioneer to not know what to do, and he tried his best to say, 11,000 gold coins, 11,000 gold coins, is there anyone else? There was a trace of pleading in his eyes. If the village creation token was one just like that, he would not be able to bear the consequences. 15,000 gold coins. Ouyang Shua bid. Hua, the crowd looked at Box 1 as if they were looking at an idiot. Everyone knew that the person sitting in Box 1 was the most powerful lord in the China region, not Sei Wui. Being rich was truly willful. If it was just a low price, some people might have fought for it. However, Ouyang Shua directly raised it to 15,000 gold coins, causing the players' hearts to freeze. Not everyone was as rich as Ouyang Shua, who could casually throw out tens of thousands of gold coins. Just like that, the first item successfully fell into Ouyang Shua's hands. To be continued. Chapter 308. Little Shua, if you have a lot of money, you can lend it to me. Is there a need to be so wasteful? The people in Box 1 were naturally puzzled by Ouyang Shua's actions, but other than Lin Jing, no one else could say it so bluntly. Ahem, Ouyang Shua had to explain. Auntie, I'm not wasting money. This village creation token is definitely worth it. Tell me. If you can't explain, I'll teach you a lesson. Lin Jing's profession was a vigilante, so his killing power was off the charts. The token is for Bing Heir to establish her territory. Are you kidding me? Bing Heir is still a child, how can she be a lord? Bing Heir, who was struggling with the fruit platter in the box, raised her head curiously when she heard her brother mention her. Auntie, let me finish. Ouyang Shua was helpless in front of such an impatient elder. Speak. Bing Heir can't manage the territory, but I can manage it for her. I'm Bing Heir's legal guardian, and according to the system, the guardian can manage the territory of the ward until the ward reaches adulthood, Ouyang Shua explained. There's such a setting? How come I didn't know? Lin Jing was skeptical. You're not a lord, of course you didn't know, Ouyang Shua muttered. Wui, I didn't know there was such a setting either, did you? Bai Hua looked at the two bickering and laughed as he helped Lin Jing out. Dragon seeking acupuncture point and the others shook their heads in unison. We didn't know. Serves you right. Ouyang Shua wasn't polite to them. Isn't there a lord's notice in the lord's interface? It's written very clearly in there. You're just lazy and didn't read it, right? Damn, boss, my respect for you is like a raging river. That lord's notice is so long and smelly. It's more than 20 pages, and you actually finished reading it. The siege lion was showing off again. Respect +1. Dragon seeking acupuncture point quickly followed. +2. +3. That's enough. Ouyang Shua facepalmed. Why did everyone become so funny? Amidst the laughter, the auctioneer began to auction the second item. The second tray was opened. It was an ancient book. The auctioneer said, "This is a manual of chainmail manufacturing technique. The base price is 11,000 gold coins, and the buyout price is 35,000 gold coins. Please bid." Chainmail was a very common type of armor. Whether it was cavalry, infantry, or even archers, they could all wear chainmail. In terms of defense, the chainmail armor was only average. However, compared to the system armor, it was much better. Therefore, the chainmail caused fierce competition. 12,000 gold, 13,000 gold coins, 14,000 gold coins, 20,000 gold coins, 22,000 gold, 23,000 gold coins. The price of the chain mail manufacturing technique manual continued to rise, and very quickly it was raised to 25,000 gold coins. Only War Wolf and Chun Shinjun were still holding on until now. Within the alliance of mountains and seas, Ouyang Shua had the footman armor and radiant armor, while Feng Chihuang had the iron floating armor. Thus, they did not have much need for armor. On the other hand, the Yan-Huang alliance urgently needed a set of armor forging technique. In the end, the chain mail manufacturing technique manual was bought by War Wolf for 28,000 gold coins. It was not that Ouyang Shua did not want to join in. After all, no one would complain about having more armor, and chainmail was still useful. However, when he thought of the fact that it was only the second item, and he only had 100,000 gold coins left, it was better to be cautious. The pace of the auction slowly reached its peak. Now, let's start with the third item. The auctioneer pointed at the third tray and said, "This is a manual of the Ming Dynasty warship manufacturing techniques. The base price is 15,000 gold coins, and the buyout price is 45,000 gold coins. Please bid." Ouyang Shua sucked in a breath of cold air, unable to conceal the excitement in his heart. The thing he needed the most was finally on the market. Before the westernization movement of the Qing dynasty, the warship manufacturing techniques of the Ming dynasty represented the highest level of ancient warship manufacturing in China. At that time, it was the world's leading technology. What was even rarer was that this was an integrated technical manual, just like the Song Dynasty crossbow manufacturing techniques manual that Ouyang Shua had bought in the first auction. Mastering it meant mastering the warship manufacturing techniques of a dynasty, or even an era. It would be a comprehensive upgrade to the territory's shipbuilding industry. No one could remain calm. Among the 10 largest territories in China, other than Shanghai City, there were only 2 coastal territories, Bawang County and Xuanlong County in the Quanzhou region. If one considered the rivers and the map being expanded by 10 times, China's waterways were crisscrossed, especially in the southern region. There were countless rivers and lakes, and the importance of warships was undeniable. One could imagine what kind of competition the Ming Dynasty warship manufacturing techniques manual would attract. In less than 10 minutes, the price had been raised to 28,000 gold coins. The poor Xuanlong acupoint immediately gave up. He still owed the Bank of the Four Seas a loan, and where would he find such a large amount of funds? He could only sigh. Fortunately, he had a powerful ally. "Boss, is it time to make a move?" Ouyang Shua was calm and did not rush to participate in the auction. "Wait. Still waiting." Xuanlong acupoint did not believe that Ouyang Shua would give up. During this time, the pace of the bidding became faster and faster. 30,000 gold coins, 33,000 gold coins, 35,000 gold coins. Ouyang Shua could no longer remain calm. The Ming Dynasty warship manufacturing techniques manual was too important to the territory's strategy. It was not an exaggeration to say that it was his lifeline. Because he cared too much about it, he could no longer remain calm. 38,000 gold coins. Ouyang Shua made his first bid. Basically, this price was close to the limit of what the players could afford. After Ouyang Shua made his bid, only Xiongba still had a chance. Xiongba said to Ouyang Shua from his private room, "Brother Wui's wealth is still as despairing as ever." There was a hint of bitterness in his voice. 39,000 gold coins. Xiongba made his last bet. 40,000 gold coins. Ouyang Shua's attitude was firm. As soon as Xiongba's voice fell, he immediately increased the price. If Xiongba increased the price again, he would buy it immediately. He would not allow any accidents to happen. The whole audience was in an uproar. It was unbelievable that an auction item could be sold for 40,000 gold coins. "Brother Wui, I admire you." Xiongba sighed and raised his hand to surrender. In the end, Ouyang Shua won the Ming Dynasty warship manufacturing techniques manual with a sky-high price of 40,000 gold coins. The final decision made people raise their eyebrows. Di Chen, on the other hand, heaved a sigh of relief. He said with a smile, "With this bid, Wui will no longer be able to compete with us for that item, right?" Peerless Elegance declined to comment and said indifferently, "Have you forgotten about the first auction?" Di Chen was stunned. His face was a little pale. He said reluctantly, "Today is different from the past. Wui has already spent 50 to 60,000 gold coins. No matter how rich he is, he won't have much left. It can't be. I really don't know how he can earn so much money. Logically speaking, the promotion of Shanghai City to a county city should cost a lot of money. How can he still have so much free money? Di Chen was puzzled. Peerless Elegance did not speak, which meant that she was also puzzled. Do you think it is possible that he misappropriated the territory's construction funds? Di Chen did not believe it. Do you think that Wui is so eager for quick success and instant benefits? Di Chen was disappointed. No. There was an awkward silence. Lord Chuanshan's expression was indescribable. Even such a brilliant assassin could not stop you. You are really lucky. I hope you will not be a stumbling block for me. Otherwise, Lord Chuanshan's expression was gloomy and cold. He was like a poisonous snake, secretly watching its prey. After a short break, the auction continued. Now we will auction the fourth item. The auctioneer pointed to a scroll on the tray and said, "This is a scroll of the Qi Cultivator Hidden Profession Change Scroll. After using it, you can immediately change to a hidden profession, Qi Cultivator. The starting price is 12,000 gold coins. The final price is 35,000 gold coins. Please bid." As soon as the auctioneer finished speaking, the adventure-type players immediately became excited. Qi Refinement Warrior. It sounded like a very powerful hidden vocation, wasn't it? Although according to Gaia's settings, there would not be any heaven-defying skills like sword kinesis flight, it was still very possible to cast a small spell or set up an array or two. Therefore, the auction immediately entered a small climax. The leaders of the various guilds began to bid. 18,000 gold coins, 20,000 gold coins, 22,000 gold coins, 26,000 gold coins. The players' blood was boiling as they immediately bid for 22,000 gold coins. Ouyang Shua could not help but sigh. These leaders of the guilds were all tycoons. The calls for bids came one after another. Even Box 1 was no exception. It was Xiesiun. Her profession was a Taoist, which could be considered to be of the same lineage as a Qi cultivator. 30,000 gold coins. Xiesiun bid a second time. Seeing that it was nearing the final price, the frequency of bids immediately dropped. Finally, it was a competition between the top 10 guilds. Other than a thread, which was made up entirely of lifestyle players, no guild was willing to give it up so easily. Even if the guild leaders could not use it themselves, they could hand it over to their core members. Just as the guilds were in a life-and-death struggle, a bid suddenly came from the public area below. 35,000 gold coins. The person who raised the bid was a nameless player. The atmosphere seemed to have been paused as it suddenly became terrifyingly quiet. In a blink of an eye, the pause button disappeared. The players were in an uproar. Be it the public area or the players in the boxes, everyone stared dumbfoundedly at the dark horse that had suddenly appeared. They wanted to know who he was. To be continued. Chapter 309. The dark horse player who raised the paddle wore a hood, making it impossible to see his face. He appeared mysterious and unfathomable. The leaders of the various large guilds felt like 10,000 horses were galloping across their hearts. They were too deep for tears. After raising the paddle, the player immediately left the public area and left the auction house. It was obvious that he was here for the job change scroll. The auction of the fourth item ended in such a bizarre way. The mysterious dark horse player would definitely become the biggest suspense in the second system auction. Ouyang Shua did not remember such a mysterious buyer in his previous life. He speculated that this person was either a lone ranger who had coincidentally completed a hidden mission and obtained a huge reward, or he was really the successor of a hidden family. Only these two types of people had such immense financial strength, and he was more inclined to the latter. This was because if he was an ordinary Lone Ranger, even if he had the funds, he would not know that the Qi Refinement Warrior Hidden Class Change Scroll would be auctioned at this auction. Could it be that those mysterious hidden family clans could not bear the loneliness and were about to appear? Upon thinking of this, Ouyang Shuo had an inexplicable expression. His rebirth had really changed many things. Speaking of which, before Ouyang Shuo's identity was exposed, wasn't he already suspected by players to be the successor of a hidden family? From this, it was obvious how powerful and mysterious they were. The number of hidden family clans was unknown, their members unknown, and it was unknown whether they were good or evil. They were like a fog that shrouded the sky above the game, lingering for a long time. Of course, being hidden did not mean that they were reclusive. They could be a colleague, an auntie who danced in the square, or an old man who played chess in the park. They could even be a tailor or butcher who lived in the slums. Everything was possible. With various factions appearing on stage, the game became more and more interesting. The second year of Gaia was destined to be an extraordinary year. The auction continued. We will now begin the auction for the fifth item. The auctioneer pointed at the item on the tray and said, "This is the Shanwen Armor Manufacturing Technique Manual. The base price is 13,000 gold coins, and the buyout price is 40,000 gold coins. Everyone, please bid." Compared to the infantry armor of the Song dynasty, the Tang dynasty's Shanwen armor was a more pure infantry armor. As the armor plates were made of metal plates with the shape of a mountain, it was called Shanwen armor. Shanwen Jia was a traditional Chinese armor. It was made up of 3 diamond-shaped plates, and was a classic Chinese armor. The Shanwen armor was beautiful in appearance, close-fitting, easy to repair, and strong in overall defense. However, due to its complexity and high cost, it was mostly used as armors for military officials and soldiers. It was not widely used at the grassroots level. Other than Ouyang Shuo, everyone was tempted. 14,000 gold coins, 15,000 gold coins, 17,000 gold coins, 30,000 gold coins. Di Chen suddenly raised his paddle. Clang! The rhythm of the auction was completely disrupted. Di Chen made his move decisively, and pushed the auction price to the edge of the fixed price, showing his determination to win the Shanwen Jia Manufacturing Technique Manual. Di Chen also wanted to use this method to obtain the Shanwen Jia Manufacturing Technique Manual at the lowest cost. In the alliance of mountains and seas, besides Ouyang Shuo, only Bai Hua had the financial resources to continue. The Yan Huang alliance's Lord Chunxin and Xiongba also had this kind of wealth. The strange thing was that the two of them did not raise their placards. They seemed to have formed a tacit understanding with Di Chen that they would not interfere with each other's business. 31,000 gold coins. Bai Hua raised his paddle. Di Chen's eyes narrowed, and he did not hesitate to raise his bid, 35,000 gold coins. Di Chen's jumping bid put a lot of pressure on Bai Hua. Bai Hua's funds were only 40,000 gold coins, and the first round of the auction had already used up a portion of his funds. If he wanted to continue, he would have to borrow money from Ouyang Shuo. With Di Chen's momentum and determination, it was very likely that he would choose to raise his bid. After discussing with Qing Yi, Bai Hua was prepared to give up on the auction. Firstly, the price was very high, and secondly, Shanghai City's military had already begun to meet the conditions for export, so the demand was not very urgent. At this time, Ouyang Shuo suddenly whispered in Bai Hua's ear. Bai Hua was startled and looked at him speechlessly. He raised his paddle again, 36,000 gold coins. In Di Chen's box. What should we do? Should we raise the fixed price? Di Chen asked. Peerless Elegance frowned. Bai Hua probably has the support of Not Sei Wui, and wants to fight us to the death. To be on the safe side, we should raise the fixed price. Di Chen sighed and said, "That's the only way. If we hadn't prepared well, we would have failed again." He was still distressed by the fact that he had exceeded the budget of 10,000 gold coins. 40,000 gold coins was not a small amount. In order to raise this amount, Handan County had been living frugally for the past few months, and some construction projects had to be postponed. Di Chun had racked his brains and finally won the Shanwen Armor Manufacturing Manual at a fixed price. As usual, after the 5 items were auctioned, a break was arranged. During the break, the members of the Shanghai Alliance were very curious about what Ouyang Shua had said to Bai Hua. According to the situation at the time, Bai Hua should have been ready to give up, so why did he suddenly continue? Ouyang Shua's expression was calm, and he said mockingly, "I told Bai Hua to follow up with no worries, and that if he really won the auction, I will pay the premium. Let's screw Di Chun over." "Haha, boss, well done. Wui, you're so bad. How could you screw people over like that? Remember to bring me next time." Ouyang Shua was speechless. "Feng Wu, can't you be more reserved? If Di Chun knew the truth, he would cry, wouldn't he? He sold me out, forced me to raise the paddle, and when I found out the truth, tears fell down my face." The siege lion hummed. "Haha," everyone laughed. "And Bai Hua, the ice goddess, actually cooperated with our boss. What a surprise." "I'm innocent." Bai Hua defended herself weakly. "Forget it, sister. You're just that two-faced." Qingyi mercilessly exposed Bai Hua. "Haha," another burst of laughter. "Stupid girl, I'll teach you a lesson." Bai Hua flew into a rage. "Ah, help! Sister is going to kill me, help!" Qingyi covered her head and scurried away. The group of two-faced people stood on the side and watched the show, with no intention of going up to save the day. "Damn you! You're burning the bridge after crossing the river!" "Little sister Qingyi, good luck to you. We can't help you even if we want to." The siege lion was still fanning the flames. It was really a case of watching a show. "Brother Lion, I'll remember you." "What? I didn't do anything." The siege lion looked innocent. "You deserve it." Hearing the laughter from the box next door, Di Chen's heart trembled. Why did he feel like he had been played by Niu Wui again? No, Di Chen comforted himself. No matter what, he had already achieved his goal and successfully won the bid. With Shan Wenjia, Handan County would be able to form a powerful elite infantry. With the addition of the veteran Lian Pu as the commander, the Handan County army would soon undergo a magnificent transformation. The Yellow Turban uprising in the north was an opportunity for Di Chen to rise. After the break, the second half began. The auctioneer walked up to the stage again to host the auction. In the first half of the auction, other than the first item, Village Creation Token, which was rejected, the other 4 items were sold at high prices. He was very confident. "Now, let's start with the 6th item." The auctioneer pointed to an ancient book on the tray and said, "This is a Secret Realm Exploration Scroll. The starting price is 10,000 gold coins, and the final price is 30,000 gold coins. Everyone, please bid." The Secret Realm Exploration Scroll was a treasure for adventure-type players. It was different from the Class Change Scroll. The value of the Class Change Scroll was very obvious, but the value of the Secret Realm Exploration Scroll was hard to determine. It only gave players a chance to explore a secret realm. As for whether players would be able to clear the secret realm after tearing the scroll, or what kind of rewards they would obtain after clearing the secret realm, there was no guarantee. If they were lucky, they might be able to obtain a godly skill manual or a godly weapon. If they were unlucky, they might only obtain some forging materials or some gold-grade equipment. Everything was unknown. Of course, the system would not be too capricious. If they cleared a secret realm, they would be able to obtain at least 1 dark gold-grade equipment as a reward. Even so, all the major guilds were eager to obtain it. This was because it was very difficult to obtain high-level skills and equipment by killing monsters and completing quests. This was especially true for secret cultivation technique. Secret cultivation techniques at or above the king level were hard to come by. Secret realms at least provided an opportunity, a possibility. For the leaders of the guilds who pursued the higher end, they naturally would not miss this opportunity. If they could obtain the first secret realm in the China server, it would be a significant boost to their guild's reputation. Lords like Ouyang Shua were not interested in the secret realm exploration scroll. This was because only players could enter the secret realm. Generals and soldiers of the territory could not be brought into the secret realm. As a result, it was very difficult for the lords to organize a powerful exploration team unless they cooperated with the guild. Because of this, the lords naturally had little interest in it. 11,000 gold coins, 12,000 gold coins, 18,000 gold coins, 19,000 gold coins. The auction price soared. The leaders of the top 10 guilds were not the only ones bidding. Second-tier guilds, famous adventure teams, elite mercenary groups, and other organizations were also sharpening their knives. 21,000 gold coins. 22,000 gold coins. The auction price continued to soar. It was about to reach the fixed price. At this moment, the players who were watching the show were looking forward to the appearance of another dark horse. 30,000 gold coins. It was another fixed price. However, this time, the bidder was not a dark horse. It was the leader of the number 1 guild in the China server, Bloodlust mercenary group, Bloody Romance, the number 1 adventurer. Bloody Romance was also worried that something unexpected would happen, so he simply bought the scroll at the fixed price to show his magnanimity as the number 1 player. To be continued. Chapter 310. Now, let's start the auction for the 7th item. The auctioneer pointed at the 7th tray and introduced, "This is a fusion token. After using it, a village creation token from a subsidiary territory can be fused with an existing town. There is no need to rebuild it from scratch. The starting price is 5,000 gold coins, and the final price is 20,000 gold coins." Ouyang Shua never thought that he would see a second fusion token so quickly. Speaking of which, there was still one spot that he had not used from the first fusion token. However, to Ouyang Shua the more the better. He had already decided that even if it was only a fixed price, he would obtain the fusion token. Ouyang Shua understood, but that did not mean that others understood. In the eyes of an ordinary lord, there were still 9 spots that had not been used, so there was no need to use a fusion token. Another awkward silence. Ouyang Shua did not bid because he did not want to appear too impatient and let Di Chen and the others see through him. The others did not bid because they did not know the value of the token. Di Chen and Battlewolf, who had already obtained something, had basically used up all their funds and were unable to compete. Chun Shin Lord and Xiongba, who had not obtained anything, needed to hold on to their funds. 6,000 gold coins. The one who bid was a player in the public area. With a whoosh, everyone looked at him, thinking that they were about to witness the birth of a dark horse. Suddenly, he became the center of attention, and the player seemed very pleased with himself. 1 minute passed, 2 minutes passed. Time slowly passed, but no one else made a bid. The player who had just been pleased with himself became anxious. Thinking of the consequences, his face suddenly turned pale. The heavens pitied him. He was just a small lord, and he had only bid to show off. He had never thought of buying this token that he didn't know what it was used for. 6,000 gold coins was all he had. This player's expression naturally did not escape the eyes of the surrounding players. Only then did the players realize that this was not a dark horse, but a stupid horse. The crowd went into an uproar. Everyone looked at the player in amusement, wanting to see how he would deal with this. 6,000 gold coins. Is there anyone else who wants to bid? The auctioneer was also helpless. These people really did not know what was good for them. He bitterly said, 6,000 gold coins going once. The player's face was completely pale, and his hands and feet were cold. 6,000 gold coins going twice. The players' eyes were lifeless, and their faces were filled with despair. Ouyang Shua looked at the farce in the public area in amusement. He waited until he was done playing before slowly raising his signboard. The auctioneer's spirit was lifted. Seeing the hope of a hot auction, he said emotionally, 7,000 gold coins. Room 1 bids 7,000 gold coins. Are there any higher bids? Phew! The player's nerves relaxed, and he slumped into his chair as if he had just survived a calamity. He gratefully glanced at Ouyang Shuo, who was in box 1, and swore in his heart that he would definitely find an opportunity to repay him in the future. The other players also thought that Ouyang Shuo's bid was to help someone out of a difficult situation. They couldn't help but praise his chivalrous actions. Some of the players who wanted to give it a try and participate in the auction also gave up on the idea of continuing. Ouyang Shuo wasn't stupid enough to clear his name. He bought the fusion token at a low price of 7,000 gold coins with a clear conscience. He was actually quite grateful to the player who had stood up for him. If it weren't for this player's interference, the fusion token definitely wouldn't be worth that much. After buying the fusion token, Ouyang Shuo still had 54,000 gold coins left in his storage bag. It was enough for him to buy another auction item. The cold reception of the fusion token gave the auctioneer a headache. He had a love-hate relationship with Ouyang Shuo, because both the cold reception items were bought by Ouyang Shuo. What a lucky guy. The red silk cloth on the 8th tray was removed. It was actually a treasured sword. Without waiting for the auctioneer's introduction, the adventure-type players were already boiling with excitement. The second system auction wasn't bad for adventure-type players. Up until now, there were already 3 auction items prepared for adventure-type players. Now, let's start the auction for the 8th item. The auctioneer pulled himself together, pointed at the treasured sword on the tray, and said, "This is a godly weapon 7-star dragon well, ranked 5th among the 10 famous swords. It was forged by O Yezi and Gan Jiang, 2 swordsmithing grandmasters. The starting price is 20,000 gold coins, and the final price is 60,000 gold coins. Everyone, please bid." The 7-star dragon well was a sword of integrity and nobility. Legend had it that in order to forge this sword, O Yezi and Gan Jiang chiseled open the Abari's mountains and released the mountain stream water to the furnace to form the Big Dipper. After the sword was forged, looking down at it was like climbing a mountain and looking into an abyss. It was ethereal and deep, as if a giant dragon was lying there. It was called Dragon Well. A godly weapon, the number 1 godly weapon of the China server, had actually appeared in an auction. The players were as excited as a rabbit. Their eyes were as red as a rabbit's, and they all wanted to rush up to the stage and take the 7-star dragon well for themselves. Whether it was a lord or an adventure-type player, there was no one who wasn't tempted. At this point, the atmosphere of the auction had reached its peak. For adventure-type players, they no longer cared about the final item. In their eyes, there was only the shadow of the 7-star dragon well. Unfortunately, the exorbitant price of the 7-star dragon well made players above 999 flinch. They couldn't even afford the starting price, so they could only look at it. Blood Romance's face was deathly pale. He beat his chest and stamped his feet in his private room, regretting it. He was crying, regretting that he had been so foolish to use his precious funds on a secret realm exploration scroll. Poor him. When he had just won the secret realm exploration scroll, he had been full of satisfaction. "Little Shuo, I want this sword." Lin Jing had fallen in love with the 7-star dragon well the first time he laid eyes on it. "If you want it, then bid for it." Ouyang Shuo was baffled. He wanted it for himself. Even if his swordsmanship was terrible, it would still be a good addition to his collection. What a sense of accomplishment! This was a godly weapon that he had dreamed of in his past life, but he had never been able to obtain it. "I don't have enough money," Lin Jing said, embarrassed. For this auction, Snow Death Rose had prepared a total of 45,000 gold. The first round of the auction had used 5,000 gold, so there was still 40,000 gold left. It wasn't enough to buy the 7-star dragon well at all. In the time it took to speak, the price had already risen to 30,000 gold. The truly powerful big shots hadn't even made a move yet. They were very clear that the most intense battle had yet to begin, so they were busy borrowing funds from their allies. The funds that Snow Death Rose had prepared could already be considered abundant. The 10 major guilds only had 30,000 to 40,000 gold. After all, the funds of the guilds were public assets and were strictly regulated. It wasn't something that they could casually use. How do you know that I still have money? I spent quite a lot earlier. Ouyang Shuo asked. You definitely have it. Little Ant said confidently. Ouyang Shuo didn't intentionally hide the fact that Shanghai City had made a fortune from selling food from her. Lin Jing could naturally estimate Ouyang Shuo's financial strength. Ouyang Shuo nodded helplessly and directly transferred 20,000 gold to her. Remember to return it. Stingy. Lin Jing had gathered enough funds to buy the 7-star dragon well. Cough. Ouyang Shuo was speechless as he looked at this elder who was about the same age as him. This was 20,000 gold coins, not 200 or 2,000. Lin Jing got the money and no longer cared about Ouyang Shuo. Instead, he started discussing with Xiexiun. Should we just buy it at a fixed price? She had already lost her composure in front of her beloved item. Xiexiun thought for a while and said, Let's wait for a while. If we can avoid wasting money, then don't spend it. Using such a large sum of money to buy the 7-star dragon well could only be used by Lin Jing alone. When they returned, they had to give an explanation to the guild. It wasn't as simple as they thought. Therefore, they had to save as much as possible. Lin Jing nodded uneasily and stared at the price outside. 32,000 gold, 33,000 gold, 35,000 gold, 37,000 gold. The price kept rising and didn't seem to have any intention of stopping. 40,000 gold. Finally, the price reached a critical point and the player's price obviously slowed down. Those who could last until now were the real crocodiles. The fierce battle had just begun. At this moment, the leader of Crisscrossing Sword Aura, one sword from the west, suddenly shouted with a somewhat arrogant tone, I say, everyone, stop wasting time. Let's fight. I'll pay 45,000 gold. Obviously, one sword from the west had raised some money and didn't want to give others a chance to breathe. In a hurry, not everyone could raise tens of thousands of gold. The price of 45,000 gold coins instantly pushed the price to another critical point. 46,000 gold. Swallow Li San, the leader of 18 steeds of Swallow and Cloud, quickly followed. One sword from the west's eyes narrowed. He didn't expect Swallow Li San to also raise money. Except for Swallow Li San, no one else followed. In the battle between the two heroes, it was still unknown who would win. In the first private room. Should we follow? Lin Jing was a little nervous. Wait a little longer. I think they're almost at their limit. Xiexiun was as calm as ever. Okay. Lin Jing was a little reluctant and couldn't even speak fluently. She held the red wooden sign that represented the fixed price in her hand tightly, ready to raise it at any time. 47,000 gold. One sword from the west raised the price again. 48,000 gold. Swallow Li San was neither fast nor slow. The two began to compete, and no one knew how much gold the other had raised. 49,000 gold. One sword from the west was a little nervous. The price was almost at his limit. 50,000 gold. Swallow Li San was still not fast nor slow. The players who were watching the show were about to suffocate. 50,000 gold was an astronomical number. Lin Jing was so nervous that she almost broke the sign. If Xiexiun hadn't held her down, she would have bought it at any cost. A godly weapon like the 7-star dragon's well was the ultimate pursuit of a swordsman. With it, there was nothing else to ask for. 52,000 gold. One sword from the west put all his money on the line, ready to go all out. Swallow Li San's face suddenly turned pale, and he was no longer calm. In fact, 50,000 gold was all he had. He wasn't as calm as he looked, and he was just putting on a show for one sword from the west. He didn't expect that he would fail at the last moment. Seeing Swallow Lisan's expression, one sword from the west was wild with joy. Happiness came too suddenly. Haha, the 7-star dragon's well is mine. One sword from the west couldn't help but shout with a carefree expression. One sword from the west was also a pure swordsman, and he was obsessed with swords. Just now, he had agreed to many unfair terms with Emperor Chun to raise some money with great difficulty. The players looked at one sword from the west with envy. In box 1, Xiesiun's eyes narrowed, and she said softly, "Bid 53,000 gold coins." Lin Jing almost reflexively quoted the price. Boom! In an instant the venue was in an uproar. Unexpectedly, a dark horse appeared in the end. No, it couldn't be said to be a dark horse, but a vicious wolf that was waiting for an opportunity in the dark. One sword from the west's happy expression suddenly froze, and his face stiffened. He turned to look at box 1 in disbelief, and his face suddenly turned red. This time, he had lost a lot of face. The auctioneer ignored one sword from the west and continued, 53,000 gold, going once, 53,000 gold, going twice. Are there any higher bids? 53,000 gold, going thrice. Bang! The auctioneer hit the hammer and loudly announced, "Congratulations to Snow Rose in box 1 for successfully winning the 8th auction item, the 7-star dragon's well." One sword from the west finally reacted. Looking at the mocking expressions of the surrounding players, his expression instantly became ferocious, and he stared at box 1. "Snow Rose, I'm not done with you. To be continued." Chapter 3:11. Haha, one sword comes from the west. You've been slapped in the face, haven't you? When the curtain fell on the show, Swallow Lisan had already adjusted his emotions. When he saw one sword from the west being KO'd by Snow Rose, who had suddenly appeared, he had a face full of schadenfreude and ridicule. It was just like the saying, "Heaven's justice revolves, and retribution is not satisfying." Shilai Sword's face darkened. He was too ashamed to stay any longer, so he stood up and left the auction house. In the end, Lin Jing successfully won the Divine Armament 7-star Dragon Abyss for a sky-high price of 53,000 gold coins. Snow Rose and crisscrossing sword energies were now enemies, and there was no room for reconciliation. With one sword from the West's arrogant personality, he would definitely think of a way to get back at her after losing so much face today. The powerful properties of the 7-star Dragon Abyss sword caused the members of the Mountain and Sea Alliance to drool. Name: 7-star Dragon Well Divine Weapon. Hardness: 88, Sharpness: 90, Toughness: 85. Characteristics: Edge Breaker. When the weapon's hardness is lower than the 7-star Dragon Abyss sword, there is a chance that the weapon will be cut in half by the 7-star Dragon Abyss sword. Unique item: cannot be dropped, cannot be traded. Sure Kill Skill. 7 stars of the Big Dipper releases 7 Starlight Sword Chi to form the Big Dipper sword formation. Like an antelope hanging its horns like the flying snow in June, it kills without a trace and is unavoidable. Cooldown time: 1 week. Evaluation: the 7-star Dragon's Well is a sword of integrity and nobility. Legend has it that Yezi and Gan Jiang chiseled open the Abari's mountains to release the water from the mountain stream to the side of the furnace to form the Big Dipper. After the sword was formed, looking down at the sword was like climbing a high mountain and looking down into an abyss. It was ethereal and deep, as if there was a giant dragon lying in the world. It was named Dragon Abyss. Compared to a purple gold weapon, the stats of a god weapon were much stronger. Other than the normal Edge Breaker, there was also the cannot be dropped, cannot be traded attribute, so there was no need to worry about the god weapon being stolen. In addition, the divine weapon also had a sure kill skill, which was even more enviable. The power of the sure kill skill was related to the user's internal energy. The stronger the internal energy, the greater the power. Basically, once ultimate skill was used, the user's internal energy would be depleted. Therefore, if Lin Jing wanted to make full use of the godly weapon, he would need an emperor level or above cultivation method. Unfortunately, such a cultivation technique could only be found by luck and not sought. After checking his attributes, Lin Jing wanted to join the Eastern Fence Sword faction, take Song Jia as his master, and practice the 9 Yin scripture. In the game, in order to prevent techniques from being misused, there were very strict restrictions on sect technique. Even true disciples could only cultivate up to 80% of the sect's core cultivation technique. Moreover, once a player joined a sect, they would be bound by the sect's rules. With Lin Jing's status, it was obviously impossible for him to join the Eastern Fence Sword sect. Of course, the most important thing about a divine armament was a hidden setting of Gaia. According to the settings, the divine weapon could be restored to the real world 100% of the time, and it was free. As for purple gold equipment, not only did it have a certain chance, but it also required a certain amount of achievement points to restore it. With the divine weapon in hand, the world is mine. Otherwise, why would it be said that owning a godly weapon was the ultimate goal of adventurer players? From the moment Lin Jing had obtained the 7-star dragon well, his eyes had not turned away. His face was filled with infatuation, which made Xie Xiun, who was beside him, feel very hurt. Just as Lin Jing picked up the 7-star dragon well, a system announcement rang out. System announcement. Congratulations to player Snow Rose for obtaining the divine weapon, the 7-star dragon well. You have officially triggered the 10 Famed Swords series quest. The 10 Famed Swords have appeared in the wilderness. Please explore them yourself. The announcement caused another wave of commotion. The players at the auction had personally witnessed the appeal of the 10 Famed Swords. If they could find one of them, even if they didn't use it themselves, they could still sell it and spend it in the game for many years. Becoming rich overnight was no longer a fantasy. Even the members of the Alliance of Mountains and Seas were excited. They had seen the powerful attributes of a divine armament, and their yearning for the 10 Famed Swords was even greater than that of ordinary players. The existence of a divine armament had already transcended the boundaries of a profession. Everyone wanted one. This was especially true for vigilantes. A divine armament was undoubtedly a fatal poison. Red Eagle, who had followed Bai Hua to the auction, had seen the 7-star dragon well's attributes. He had been pestering Bai Hua, leaving him speechless. Even Song Jia, who had the Azure Edge sword, was obsessed with the 7-star dragon well. If it wasn't her aunt, Lin Jing, who had participated in the auction, Song Jia would have begged Ouyang Shua to bid for the 7-star dragon well. Now that she had seen the 10 Famed Swords quest, Song Jia's eyes lit up. She swore that she would definitely find one of them. Ouyang Shua shook his head as he looked at the heated discussion among the players. The 10 Famed Swords of China were the Sword of Sages, Xianyuan Sword, the Sword of Benevolence, Zhanlu Sword, the Sword of Emperors, Scarlet Cloud Sword, the Sword of Might Yi Sword, the Sword of Integrity, 7-star Dragon Well Sword, the Sword of Love, Ganjiang Sword and Moxie Sword, the Sword of Righteousness and Lawlessness, Yuchang Sword, the Sword of Nobility, Chunjun Sword, and the Sword of Shadow, Shadow-Bearing Sword. The Xianyuan sword was in the hands of the Yellow Emperor, and it was extremely difficult for players to obtain it unless they found the hidden Yellow Emperor's tribe. The Zhanlu sword was in the hands of Yu Fei, and it would not appear for the time being. The Scarlet Cloud sword was in the hands of Liu Bang, and it would not appear for the time being. In addition to the 7-star Dragon Well, the players only had the opportunity to come into contact with 6 godly weapons. In his previous life, there were also people who triggered the 10 Famed Swords quest. This quest wasn't as simple as everyone thought. Godly weapons weren't cabbages that could be found anywhere. In the 5 years of his previous life, only 4 of the 10 famed swords had appeared. This showed how rare the quest was. Ouyang Shuo was interested in the Scarlet Cloud sword of the 10 famed swords. It was the sword of emperors. He just didn't know if they were fated to meet in this life. Compared to the 10 famed swords, Ouyang Shuo was most interested in the mysterious swordsmith, Oyezi. One had to know that more than half of the 10 famed swords were forged by Oyezi. Together with his son-in-law Gan Jiang and daughter Mo Xie, they basically owned all the 10 famed swords. Oyezi was the only sword forger at the saint level. According to the era, he had already been born. Otherwise, the system wouldn't have taken out the 7-star Dragon Well sword to auction. If he could find Oyezi and had suitable materials, he wouldn't have to worry about not having a godly weapon. Of course, the only thing that could attract Oyezi was a good place to forge swords. Everything else was useless. In Ouyang Shuo's memory, there wasn't such a place to forge swords in the Lianzhou Basin. In his previous life, Oyezi had appeared in a place, built a hut, and focused on forging swords. In this life, Ouyang Shuo wanted to try and see if he could be the first to find this sword forger. With the interruption of the system announcement, the auction was nearing its end. The banquet was about to come to an end, and the mystery of the last 2 items was about to be unveiled. Now, let's start the auction for the 9th item. The auctioneer pointed at the ancient book on the tray and said, "This is the gunpowder manufacturing technique manual. The starting price is 10,000 gold coins, and the final price is 30,000 gold coins. Everyone, please bid." Gunpowder wasn't something that was extinct in the wilderness. The Taoist temples in the players' territories would more or less have some gunpowder. However, if one wanted to produce gunpowder on a large scale, they would need a specialized technical manual. For other territories, gunpowder might only be a supplementary item. However, for Shanghai City's navy, it was a crucial piece of technology. It would also be of great help to the research of the 7th Research Institute. Ouyang Shuo didn't have the slightest hesitation. Before the other players could react, he directly bid and won the gunpowder manufacturing technique manual. Before the players could react, the 9th item had already been auctioned. The auctioneer's favorable impression of Ouyang Shuo was simply off the chart. Now, let's start the auction for the 10th item. The auctioneer pointed at an ancient book on the last tray and said, "This is a book called Siege Equipment Manufacturing Technique Manual. The base price is 15,000 gold coins, and the final price is 45,000 gold coins. Everyone, please make your bids." There were many types of siege equipment in ancient times, and they were all powerful weapons used to attack fortified cities. They mainly included ladders, catapults, siege vehicles, also known as siege vehicles, siege towers, well ramparts, and ballistae. Every type of siege equipment was hard to come by, and Shanghai City only had the ladders. Ouyang Shuo weighed the money in his storage pouch. After his aunt returned him the remaining 7,000 gold coins from the 7-star Dragon Well, he had a total of 43,000 gold coins. If he won the gunpowder manufacturing technique manual, Ouyang Shuo would only be left with 13,000 gold coins, which wasn't even enough to meet the starting price. This directly announced that he had no fate with the Siege Equipment Manufacturing Technique Manual. The Siege Equipment Manufacturing Technique Manual should be Lord Chun-Shin's goal. Thinking about the assassination on the street, Ouyang Shuo's expression turned cold. He wouldn't let Lord Chun-Shin succeed. "Bai Hua, are you interested in buying the Siege Equipment Manufacturing Technique Manual?" Ouyang Shuo asked. "Of course." Bai Hua nodded and frowned, "But I don't have enough money. I only have 35,000 gold coins." "I'll lend you 10,000 gold coins. You must get it. We can't let it fall into the hands of the Yin-Huang alliance." "Wu Yi, why don't you get it yourself?" Bai Hua asked curiously. "I don't have any money." "Damn, I thought the boss had an endless supply of money. I didn't think there would be a day when he ran out of food." Ouyang Shua's mouth twitched as he glanced at the siege lion. Like a gust of cold wind, the siege lion felt bitter in its heart and immediately shut its mouth. That's fine. The money I borrowed from you will be paid through the Bank of the Four Seas. Bai Hua returned the favor and allowed the Bank of the Four Seas to set up a branch in Lingxi County. Ouyang Shua nodded. It was convenient to talk to smart people. In the fourth box, Lord Chunxin was calm and collected. He yawned and said to himself, "Is it finally going to start?" That's right, from the start, Lord Chunxin had set his sights on the 10th item. For this, he had already collected 50,000 gold coins, which was enough for him to bid for it. Lord Chunxin had been watching coldly from the side. How could Wu Yi win 4 items? No matter how much money he had, he wouldn't be able to compete with him. As for the others, he didn't even put them in his eyes. He was truly sitting on the fishing platform, preparing to win the Siege Equipment Manufacturing Technique Manual at the lowest price possible. In his eyes, the previous auction was just a farce. The process of the auction was as Lord Chunxin had predicted. 16,000 gold coins, 17,000 gold coins, 21,000 gold coins, 22,000 gold coins, 30,000 gold coins. At 30,000 gold coins, it basically didn't move. Lord Chunxin saw that the time was almost ripe and prepared to call out a price. Suddenly, Bai Hua from the first box raised his red wooden sign. The auctioneer instantly became excited and loudly announced, "Congratulations to Bai Hua from the first box for successfully winning the Siege Equipment Manufacturing Technique Manual. This auction has officially ended. Thank you everyone for coming." Lord Chunxin's expression suddenly froze, just like the previous sword from the west. "Ha ha!" A burst of unbridled laughter came from the first box. It was the best commentary and narration for Lord Chunxin's self-righteousness. The deep and shrewd Lord Chunxin had failed for the second time in this auction, obtaining nothing. To be continued. Chapter 312. Amidst the clamor, the second system auction came to an end. Out of the 10 items, Ouyang Shua monopolized 4 of them, winning the Silver Grade Village Creation Token, the Ming Dynasty Warship Creation Manual, the Fusion Token and the Gunpowder Creation Manual. Apart from that, Lin Jing won the 7-star Dragon Well, and Bai Hua won the Siege Equipment Creation Manual. The Shanghai Alliance once again shone brightly and won the auction. Di Chen won the Shanwen Armor Creation Manual, Wolf Warriors, won the Chain Armor Creation Manual, Bloody Romance, won the Secret Territory Exploration Scroll, and Mysterious Player, won the Qi Cultivator Hidden Class Change Scroll. After this battle, the Yan-Huang Alliance's armors would be improved by leaps and bounds. As for Lord Chunxin and one sword from the west, no one would sympathize with them. It was only right that the highest bidder would win. Ouyang Shua had brought 120,000 gold coins to the auction and was left with 3,000 gold coins. Who knew how intense the next year's auction would be? After the auction ended, Ouyang Shua returned to his territory. As for the investigation of the assassination in the capital, he would have to deal with it after he was done with the matters at hand. No matter who was behind the scenes, Ouyang Shua would take revenge on Blood Edge. Since Blood Edge dared to make him famous, he had to be prepared for Shanghai City's bloody vengeance. After returning to his territory, Ouyang Shua gave the Ming Dynasty Warship Creation Manual to the North Sea Shipyard and the Gunpowder Creation Manual to the 7th Research Institute. With these 2 manuals, the North Sea Fleet would experience a qualitative leap. The Fusion Token was used to fuse the 3 Black Iron Grade Village Creation Tokens from the Pool Water County. Just like that, Ouyang Shua now had 4 Village Creation Medallions that he could fuse with. As for the Village Creation Token, he would have to deal with it after he was done with the matters at hand. Ouyang Shua had already planned the location of the village. When everything was settled, it was already evening and Ouyang Shua returned to the Marquis's mansion. The next day, Ouyang Shuo went to the recruitment center to recruit a historical figure. The recruitment center's 1-year cooldown period made Ouyang Shuo happy but painful at the same time. As for the monthly recruitment of special talents, it was just a drop in the bucket for the territory. Now, among the refugees spawned in Shanghai City every day, there was more than one advanced skill talent. In the annual system update, the setting of the qualifications of the natives was added, and a new section appeared on the Lord interface, which allowed one to view the talents of various qualifications in the territory. Ouyang Shuo only paid attention to A-grade talents. Unsurprisingly, Cui Yingyu, Cui Shaoxi, Gu Xiuwen, Zhou Haichen, Zhao Sihu, Wang Feng, Sun Tingjiao, and the others were all there. Some of the core talents were basically all A-grade aptitude. As for Zhao Duong, Zhao Yufeng, Du Quan, Qian Lifei, and Du Xiaolan, they only had B-grade aptitude. Zhang Dinyo, Song San, Jing Shan Pao, and the others only had C-grade aptitude. Overall, the appointment and dismissal of talents from the Mountain Sea territory could be considered to be the best use of their talent. Ouyang Shuo pushed open the door of the recruitment hall and went straight to the side of the teleportation formation. He pressed his palm on the depression of the wooden sign, and the sound of a system notification resounded. System notice. Congratulations to player. Don't say you don't have clothes for opening the recruitment hall. The recruitment hall has 1 chance to recruit special talents and 1 chance to recruit historical talent. Do you want to recruit? Historical talent recruitment. System notice. Congratulations to player. Don't say you don't have clothes for successfully recruiting an emperor-level historical figure. Du Ruhui. 100 gold coins are automatically deducted. A white light flashed by, and a middle-aged scholar walked out from the teleportation formation. Kuming pays his respects to Master. Du Ruhui. It was Du Ruhui. Wasn't this the talent that Ouyang Shuo had always been looking for? If one couldn't forget, there would be an echo. Ouyang Shuo hurriedly stepped forward and raised his hands in a gesture of sincerity. Please rise, sir. As an important advisor to Li Shimin during the Sui and Tang dynasties, Du Ruhui had helped Li Shimin plot against Shuirengao, Lu Wuzhou, Wang Shichong, and Dou Jianda. During the Zhenguan era, Du Ruhui was the Minister of the Right and the Minister of War. Du Ruhui was at the height of his power. The only thing he was concerned about was his health. In history, Du Ruhui contracted an illness in the 4th year of the Zhenguan era and unfortunately passed away at the age of 46. Du Ruhui's face was full of heroic spirit, but his cheeks were a little thin, as if they had been cut by a knife. His face was hard and cold, and his eyes were bright and full of expression, deep and unfathomable. When he walked out of the teleportation formation, Du Ruhui couldn't help but cough. His body was slightly hunched, and it was obvious that he was ill. Ouyang Shuo's heart sank, and a trace of worry flashed in his eyes. Taking Du Ruhui out of the recruitment hall, Ouyang Shuo checked his attributes. Name: Du Ruhui. Emperor level, Dynasty, Sui and Tang dynasties. Identity: Shanghai City resident. Occupation: civil official. Loyalty: 75. Commander: 75. Martial power: 40. Intelligence: 75. Politics: 85. Specialties: decisive on the spot, increases the efficiency of the territory by 20%, farsighted, increases the success rate of stratagems by 25%, brilliant talent, increases the governance level of the territory by 10%, evaluation, ranked 3rd among the 24 meritorious officials of the Lingyan Pavilion, smart and knowledgeable, brilliant talent, clear vision, and divine splendor, both inside and outside the court, his voice resounding in the court. He is either a talented person, capable of pushing the pillars of the country, planning for the future, planning for the future, planning for the future, or a scholar of the classics, whose virtues are the same, and whose loyalty is widely known. Compared to the famous Prime Minister Fang Xianling, Du Ruhui's reputation was slightly weaker, which had something to do with his early death. In terms of ability, the two were actually about the same. One was good at scheming, while the other was good at making decisions, which was why they were called Fang Xianling Du Duan. Du Ruhui's arrival was like a shot in the arm for Ouyang Shua. Ouyang Shua led Du Ruhui to his study and personally introduced him to the situation of the territory, no matter how big or small. Du Ruhui quickly got into character. He didn't just listen, and from time to time, he would ask some questions of interest, which Ouyang Shua answered one by one. In less than an hour, the two of them were already deep in conversation. Kemming, I want you to take charge of the military office. What do you think? Ouyang Shua asked. Du Ruhui nodded thoughtfully. From the conversation just now, Du Ruhui had vaguely sensed that the Marquis was worried about the imbalance in the military. The military office couldn't establish its authority, couldn't form a balance with General Bai Qi, who was in charge of military affairs, and couldn't even tame the three major divisions. This was undoubtedly a very dangerous signal. Taking charge of the military office was a huge challenge. Not to mention the famous General Bai Qi, even the three generals Shi Wansui, Eli, and Luo Shixin weren't easy to deal with. It wasn't an easy task to straighten out the relationship in the military and form a new balance. As for the feelings of the current head of the military office, Go Hongliang, Du Ruhui didn't think too much about it. He knew that since the Marquis had made this arrangement, he wouldn't do it without thinking. As a subject, he didn't need to worry about it. Du Ruhui didn't expect things to be so interesting as soon as he came to the territory. He wasn't afraid of challenges. Please rest assured, Marquis. Kemming will not disappoint the Marquis. Du Ruhui replied. Ouyang Shua nodded. This was Du Ruhui, decisive and not sloppy. Next, the two had an in-depth discussion about the restructuring of the military office. The reason why the military office didn't live up to its name, other than the subjective factor of Gu Hongliang's limited ability, the structure of the military office was also a big part of the reason. The military office had 4 divisions, namely the Military Intelligence Division, the Combat Readiness Division, the Armor Division, and the Bow and Crossbow Division. Among the 4 divisions, the Military Intelligence Division was responsible for military intelligence, while the Combat Readiness Division, the Armor Division, and the Bow and Crossbow Division were responsible for logistics. Among the 4 divisions, there wasn't a single division that was really responsible for battle scheduling and command. No wonder the generals in the military thought that the military office was a logistics department. Ouyang Shua wanted to borrow the opportunity of the head of the military office to adjust the structure of the military office. Du Ruhui used to be in charge of the Ministry of War, so he naturally had the right to speak about the military office, which was similar to the Ministry of War. Many of his suggestions and opinions made Ouyang Shua's eyes light up, and he benefited a lot. In the morning, the two basically finalized the new structure of the military office. That afternoon, Ouyang Shua summoned General Bai Qi and the officials of the military office for a meeting. In the meeting hall, Ouyang Shua sat in the seat of honor, while Du Ruhui sat in the first seat on the right. After Bai Qi came in, he naturally sat in the first seat on the left. Next was Go Hongliang and the 4-division chief. Seeing Du Ruhui, Go Hongliang's heart sank, and he had a bad feeling. During this period of time, following Bai Qi's appointment, Go Hongliang's days were a bit difficult. He was almost taken over by Bai Qi, and gradually became a nominal head of the military office. Such days were really a kind of torture for Go Hongliang. Du Ruhui's arrival seemed to indicate that a big change was coming. Ouyang Shua noticed Go Hongliang's expression, and his thoughts were unfathomable. He could have called Go Hongliang alone to the study before the meeting so that Go Hongliang could be mentally prepared, but he didn't do so. He just wanted to see how Go Hongliang would deal with such a difficult situation, whether he would still be loyal to him, and whether he could still take on such a big responsibility. Wasn't this also a test for Go Hongliang? As the scale of the territory continued to expand, there were more and more conflicts of interest, and factions began to sprout. Naturally, the test for Ouyang Shua was also getting bigger and bigger. A year of experience had made his mind more profound, and he also had a bit of experience in how to govern. The tempering of blood and fire had also made Ouyang Shua's heart colder and harder. As time passed, Ouyang Shua's prestige grew. Now Qing and the others didn't dare to play around in front of him, and even Fan Zhongyan and the others had a bit more respect for him. How could the road of an emperor be a warm and romantic one? The more you gain, the more you lose, and in the end, you will become a lonely person. To be continued. Chapter 313. P.S. Shamelessly asking for monthly vote. Friends who have monthly votes, please vote for me. Thank you. Before the meeting, Ouyang Shua introduced Du Ruhui to everyone present. Hearing that Du Ruhui had once held the position of Minister of War, Bai Qi's eyes flashed. Go Hongliang's heart sank. His premonition was about to come true. As for the others, they were not qualified to express their opinions. The meeting officially began, and Ouyang Shua immediately announced the restructuring plan of the military office. The Combat Readiness Division has been upgraded to the Combat Readiness Division. Under it are the Blind Combat Readiness Division, the Armor Division, the Archery Division, and the Cavern Military Factory. Other than rations and equipment, the Combat Readiness Division was also responsible for the recruitment and daily training of the territory's reserve forces. Go Hongliang, the head of the Military Affairs Division, will be transferred to the head of the Combat Readiness Division. The commanders of the three divisions will remain unchanged. As soon as Ouyang Shua finished speaking, the expressions of everyone present became thought-provoking. On the surface, Go Hongliang's position did not change, and it was a transfer of the same rank. In fact, in terms of authority, he had become the logistics department head, and his authority had been greatly reduced. Go Hongliang's expression did not change. After stepping out of the ranks, he bowed and said, "Yes, sir." When he returned to his seat, Go Hongliang felt relieved. It was as if a huge stone had finally been lifted off his shoulders. The pressure from the outside world was already too much for him to bear. The Marquis's adjustment actually made him feel a sense of relief. Ouyang Shua nodded, and he felt satisfied in his heart when he saw Go Hongliang's composure. After disbanding the Supplies Division, the status of the Combat Readiness Division was actually very important. It was related to the survival of the army. If Go Hongliang didn't know what was important, Ouyang Shua wouldn't let him stay in this position for long. Song San and the other two division chiefs saw Go Hongliang's calm expression, and their hearts were filled with complicated feelings. It couldn't be said that Go Hongliang didn't work hard, but there were too many generals in the territorial army, and the pressure of competition was too great. No matter how hard Go Hongliang worked, he could only abdicate in dejection. From this, it could be seen that the Marquis's method of selecting talents. The capable ones would be promoted, and the mediocre ones would be relegated. Thinking of this, Song San and the rest couldn't help but feel their hearts tighten. Since even the director could be replaced, it was only natural that they, the directors, would be replaced one day if they were incompetent. There was no one who couldn't be replaced. Being in a high position didn't mean that one could always sit back and relax. Song San was even more flustered. As the territory continued to expand, the external environment of the territory became more and more complex, and the position of the Military Intelligence Division also became more and more important. The more important the Military Intelligence Bureau was, the more Song Sankai felt like there was a dagger on his back. He was trembling with fear. There was no guarantee that one day the Marquis would remove him as the Director General. Ouyang Shua looked around and continued, "The Combat Readiness Division is subordinate to the Military Affairs Division. At the same time, the Military Affairs Division also has the War Division and the Military Law Division. The Operations Division was responsible for battle planning and command, while the Military Law Division was responsible for enforcing military law. Du Ruhui is now the Director of Military Affairs and Chief of Operations. The position of Chief of Military Justice is temporarily vacant. The Director of Military Law, also known as the Supreme Military Judge, required a person who was not afraid of power and was impartial. Shanghai City had yet to find a suitable candidate for the position. At this point, the Military Affairs Office was in charge of the four core responsibilities of military intelligence, military law, combat, and combat readiness. With Du Ruhui's ability, she should be able to re-establish the authority of the military office in a short time. General Bai Qi and the Director of Military Affairs, Du Ruhui, were each in charge of a section. Bai Qi was mainly in charge of wartime command and military training, while Du Ruhui was mainly in charge of the military's daily construction and wartime support. When the dust settled, Song Sankai and the others were happy, but they did not dare to show it. The Military Affairs Office had been weak for a long time, and they, as Director Generals, did not have a firm voice when they spoke. Now that they were replaced with an iron-fisted director, who was experienced, capable, and deeply trusted by the Marquis, it was naturally a great advantage for them as subordinates. In the future, with someone to back them up, they would no longer have to be bullied by the three divisions. As for the nature of their superiors, they would have to slowly familiarize themselves with them in future work. Following Du Ruhui's appointment, other than the Director of Finance, Cui Yingyu, the other three directors in the Lian Province Marquis' residence were all famous historical figures. The lineup could not be said to be weak. The next day, the Secretary Office notified the various departments of the military of Du Ruhui and Gu Hongliang's appointments. Ouyang Shuo fully delegated power to Du Ruhui, giving her full responsibility for the establishment of the War Division and the Military Law Division. Du Ruhui had the authority to transfer officers from the military or the military lecture hall that was being established to the Military Affairs Office. Du Ruhui was also a swift and decisive person. That afternoon, accompanied by Gu Hongliang, she inspected the reserve forces and the four major military workshops. The next day, accompanied by Bai Qi, she went to the three divisions' encampments for an inspection. On the fourth day of the first month of the second year of Gaia, Rattlesnake Mercenary Group's leader, Black Mamba, was invited to visit Shanghai City. Black Mamba came in secret and did not bring a single subordinate with him. This former member of the Special Forces was also a famous figure in real life, but in the game, he was abnormally low-key. Interstellar Migration and Once Upon a Earth actually gave everyone a chance to start over. All personal records and interpersonal relationships had to go through a reformatting process. Black Mamba understood this point, which was why he wanted to lead a group of brothers in the game and use the platform of Once Upon a Earth to complete a gorgeous transformation and metamorphosis. Transforming and starting over was not an easy task. Although Black Mamba had done a lot of preparatory work, he still lacked an opportunity, or rather, a lever. Ouyang Shuo took the initiative to extend an olive branch, and it was precisely the opportunity that Black Mamba had been searching for. The two of them hit it off immediately. As the cooperation between Shanghai City and Rattlesnake Mercenary Group deepened, Ouyang Shuo and Black Mamba's personal relationship also deepened. The two of them were no longer limited to a cooperative partnership. The 500-strong crossbows that Ouyang Shuo had promised had all been handed over to the Rattlesnake Mercenary Group ahead of time, causing the strength of the Rattlesnake Mercenary Group to greatly increase. They had recently done a few large transactions, and their harvest was quite plentiful. Black Mamba remembered Ouyang Shuo's goodwill in his heart. Black Mamba's personality was somewhat similar to that of a siege lion, rough with a sense of delicacy. The difference was that the siege lion already had some Chunibu tendencies, walking further and further on the path of courting death. It was really hard on Zhu Xing, who had to constantly clean up his master's mess. Black Mamba was different. Bold and meticulous, cold-blooded and warm. 4 completely different personalities perfectly fused in him. He was willing to sacrifice himself for his brothers, but against his enemies, he was cold-blooded and merciless. The location of the meeting was arranged at Ouyang Shua's study. As they chatted, the two of them appeared to be very casual. "I heard that in this auction, brother, you were the champion again," Black Mamba teased. Ouyang Shua laughed. I was almost defeated by someone. The capital is not peaceful." Black Mamba's eyes narrowed. "Brother, are you talking about the assassination? I've heard about it too, but the rumors outside are all over the place. There are all kinds of rumors. Can you tell me what exactly happened?" "It was done by Bloodblade." "Bloodblade?" Black Mamba frowned. He had no impression of them at all. "Not to mention you, I also found out about their existence by accident." Ouyang Shu lied and continued, "Speaking of which, they can be considered as half of the same profession as you, Old Black." "Why do you say that?" Black Mamba unconsciously sat up straight. As the saying goes, people of the same profession are enemies. Black Mamba had no choice but to take it seriously. "Have you heard of Remnant Flower?" Ouyang Shua asked. "Remnant Flower? The most mysterious assassin organization in reality? Could it be that they are Bloodblade?" Black Mamba seemed a little agitated. His tone unconsciously sped up, and he asked one question after another. "That's right, it's them." "No wonder." Black Mamba let out a long sigh. "If it's them, then it's not strange at all. The way they do things is exactly the same." Speaking up to this point, Black Mamba looked at Ouyang Shua with a complicated expression. He said in admiration, "Brother's identity really makes me curious. No matter if it's us or Remnant Flower, we can't escape your discerning eyes." In reality, Black Mamba's heart was not as calm as it looked on the surface. Ouyang Shua smiled and did not say anything. He did not have any mysterious background. He was just relying on the advantage of being reborn. He would not explain this to Black Mamba, even if the two of them were already friends. Many times, maintaining a sense of mystery was in itself a pretty good trump card. If this trump card was played well, it would make your enemies fear you. When dealing with you, their hands and feet would be tied. At the same time, it would make your friends revere you even more. When they want to betray you, there would be an additional layer of worry. Since it was like this, how could Ouyang Shu easily reveal this trump card? The betrayal he had experienced in his previous life had long made him have a heart of stone. He would not completely trust a person again. Ouyang Shu remembered that someone had once said, "If you don't want to be betrayed by the people around you, the best way is to make the people around you unable to find the opportunity or reason to betray you." Ouyang Shu deeply agreed. If Bloodblade is Remnant Flower, then it really is a bit difficult. Black Mamba lightly brushed over it, no longer bringing up the previous topic. Of course, he understood that everyone had their own secret. If he wanted to maintain a long-lasting friendship, he would not easily touch upon the other party's secret. "In reality, have you had any dealings with them?" Ouyang Shu asked. "We really have," Black Mamba said with a bitter smile. "That time, we were carrying out an escort mission. In the end, the target we were escorting was the target that Remnant Flower wanted to assassinate." "You fought with them? What else could it be?" The Black Mamba snake spread out his hands and smiled bitterly. Even now, he still had lingering fear in his heart when he thought of that tragic confrontation. "That time, we sacrificed more than 30 of our brothers. In the end, we were still unable to protect our target. That was also one of Rattlesnake's few experiences of failure." Ouyang Shu nodded his head. He only knew the name Remnant Flower. He did not have any concrete impressions. Hearing Black Mamba's words, his mood could not help but be somewhat heavy. Even the famous rattlesnake had fallen in the hands of Remnant Flower. The opponent was indeed extraordinary. To be continued. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.